correct. You'll see later on when I discuss the next application. But now with so many more avenues of research available online, it's much easier to find things with prime research. So I would suggest that as our next grant application.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Who's that?
That's John Reimitz.
Yes.
You're saying this is to update the Junior League survey?
Yes, from 1982.
And the Junior League is who?
That's that 1982 historic survey, historic structure surveys that we rely on, because that they actually focused on over 1,000 buildings in Montclair. So those are the copies that are at the library. They're at the Montclair History Center. And if anyone is doing any research on any building in Montclair, the first thing you do, exactly, that's like your first go-to. But I've realized that there's mistakes in it, and there were, it's huge. It's over 1,000 buildings. I think it's 1,437 or something. So, and not one person worked on it. There was a point person, but there were many different people from Columbia doing the research. And like I said, 1982 wasn't easy to get to access to newspapers and books. But now with newspapers.com, we have access now to the Montclair Times online. So it's a lot easier to do research. It's a lot, the people at Columbia Avery Library are much more accessible, not now, but they were, hopefully they will be in the near future. But it's just that the research has come a long way. Yeah. It's a lot easier to do as opposed to going everywhere.
Excuse me. Does the survey include interiors as well of homes?
Yeah.
No.
Just the
No, it does not.
Okay.
And may I ask maybe Vice Chair Heineman how that fits into the law the no demolition law that was passed? Identifying buildings that have been surveyed, or do I'm not sure. Do they have to have been designated for us to weigh in with this law?
For the no knockdown ordinance, they just have to be surveyed.
Okay, so what
on the master
Junior League is sufficient, survey is sufficient to encompass protect those buildings.
Yep, as long as it's an individual site survey.
Yeah.
Okay, minor applications. We will be having a minor applications meeting next Tuesday, which I believe is the 29th in the morning. Revisions committee. I don't think we had a revisions committee meeting since our last meeting.
There's nothing to change last month.
Nothing. Okay. Old business. Graham is. Everybody is working from home, so anything that needs to go to Graham, please. He's been signing off his letters and his communiques with his new cell phone number. But you can also reach him and Janice Talley as well at their email addresses. So are there any other committee reports that anyone wants that I've missed? No. Okay. Old business. We have no old business.
Can we start the agenda?
Oh, David's just come on. Dave just acknowledged that David Greenbaum has joined.
Yes.
Is that David under PowerBook Pro? Is that David?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
Okay, good.
My computer keeps crashing, so I don't know why. I've been on and off and on and off, so I don't know what's going on.
That's you.
Okay, was somebody just started to speak about old business?
I have a question about items on this agenda each time. If there's something I want to talk about or an issue that I want to bring to the commission, do I get that placed? Do I come to you to get that put on the agenda? Or is there a place on the agenda where we just have discussions about general things?
Well, I think, and Janice, maybe you can jump in here, that as being that this is a meeting open to the public, it needs to be placed on the agenda before, so the public knows what we're discussing.
Okay.
John, I think the best thing to do would be to talk to Kathleen before the meeting, because I think she works with Grant to set the agenda.
Okay,
So run
so
it by her
I come
first.
to you, Kathleen, then to do that.
Right, but
Okay.
is there anything that we've discussed through the committee reports that
No.
is part of a committee, or
No.
no? Okay, so yeah, if there's something that for next time we need to place it on the agenda, yes, speak to me, and then we'll make sure that it's on the agenda.
Okay.
So next thing is old business, which is we don't have any. And then we'll go right into new business. So our new business is HPC application 2020-14, which is 475 and 483 Bloomfield Avenue. This is a door and window replacement, new awnings, exterior facade lighting, and signage. Now, we are reviewing this because these two buildings are within the town center historic district, which is basically our downtown Bloomfield Avenue corridor. And I just want to make a brief discussion of the building, the significance of the building. As I said, there's two buildings. The picture on the upper left, the building to the left with the strong horizontal lines is 483 Bloomfield Avenue, and the building on the corner is 475 Bloomfield Avenue. So 475 Bloomfield Avenue was built originally, was known as the Montclair Trust Company, as identified in the Montclair Times from articles dating the beginning 1910. So we know that it was constructed in 1910. Because the building significance that is in the report is we've had new research, and this is what's come of that. So what is you see here in this is not true. It's not correct. Let me put it that way. It is identified in the going back to the Town Center Historic District, the nomination report is in 2002, it's identified as a 3-story neoclassical structure. And surprise, surprise, it was not designed by York and Sawyer, but by Mowbray and Ufinger, who were responsible for the dime bank in Brooklyn. It was constructed in 1910, according to newspaper articles, and is characterized as a contributing building within the Town Center Historic District. It's a structure that consists of a granite base with a smooth limestone exterior, detailed with egg and dart moldings, dentils, and medallions. And the building in the center, it's a tri-part building. The part in the center is actually the original part, and then on either side were additions. We don't know, and it's not listed in the nomination in the nomination report or the Junior League 1982 report when those additions were added. I'm sure if someone were to search for this, they'd find it, pretty readily. The building to the left of that, which is 483 Bloomfield Avenue, is identified in the March 2002 Town Center Historic District nomination report as a late 19th century commercial building. That the architects were Van Vleck and Goldsmith, who, as we know, Van Vleck is a very prominent name and an architect, lived in Montclair, based his business in New York. And it is a has a Beaux-Arts facade. And it was constructed, I would say, around 1900, a little bit more later than what is identified in our memorandum. Both buildings were identified as contributing structures within the Town Center Historic District. Now, has everyone had a chance to read this memorandum that was part of our planning packet?
I basically muted everybody
Oh,
because the audio was poor. So I think if any board member has a comment, unmute yourself because I have everybody muted to maintain audio quality.
Are you talking about Tom Conley's memorandum?
Oh, wait, I have to unmute.
Are you
Okay.
talking, are you talking
this
about?
member,
Yes.
okay. So I just want to point out something else within this memorandum on page 2, the second paragraph. It says, this property was previously approved for replacement windows by the HPC Commission under application 2010-63. A copy of the certificate is attached to this memo. And a copy of the certificate is attached to the memo. It's at the end. But I'd just like to point out and have it on record that the commission decision was to deny the application without prejudice in a vote of 6, that voted to deny the application. And basically, what it was about the windows, and the chairperson at that time said that they were not denying the idea of replacing the windows, but the information submitted was incomplete and wrong, and that the commission at that time in 2010 was asking about steel windows as opposed to aluminum windows. So that's in a nutshell what the application, the previous application was. But we now have a new application, and what I would like to do, considering that these two buildings, even though they're connected by the same owner, the same entity, and I was in the building. I know that there's breakthroughs through the wall, so there was supposed to be some kind of access from one side to the other. What I would like to do is actually look at the building on the left, the Beaux Arts building at 483 Bloomfield Avenue, and discuss that one first, and then we can discuss the 475 Bloomfield Avenue. So do we have the applicants here tonight?
I'm
Maybe
here. I don't know if
Jen?
you can hear me.
Who's that?
That's David Genova.
Yeah, okay, I hear you, David.
Okay, I'm listed on here as call-in user 201 if you need to mute or unmute me. I'm on my phone, and I'm also on the computer so I can see because my computer doesn't have a microphone.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, is the architect here, David?
Yes. Can you hear me?
He is.
Yes.
Hi,
Can you
John
identify? Hi.
Yes, I'm John Buckholtz, the applicant's architect.
Okay.
Do we have anyone else that's going to be testifying for this applicant?
No.
Okay, so Mr. Hyman, could you swear in the witnesses?
I can do, I have him muted. Hold on. Jason?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So if everyone who will be testifying, if you could just state your name for the record one at a time.
David Genova.
John Buckholtz.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give this commission tonight will be truthful and accurate to the best of your ability?
I do.
Yes.
You're doing sworn.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Buckholtz?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, hi. Could you just describe for us what the plans are for the facade of 483 Bloomfield Avenue,
Sure.
described in our plans?
And John, if you just tell me which sheets you want me to bring up on the screen, and I can do that.
Sure. I think David wanted to do an introduction. David, are you?
Yeah, if it's okay, I'd like to just give an introduction on just kind of what the plan is for this building, what the intent is, and then I think we can focus a little more closely on the architecture. Everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. David Genova, on behalf of the applicant SAF 475 Bloomfield LLC. As you guys noted in your introduction, this is an application for two buildings, 475 and 483 Bloomfield Avenue. Both buildings are the subject of a reverse subdivision that happened a number of years ago. So they sit on the same lot despite having two addresses. And as also mentioned, 483 serves as has egress cut holes in the building. So people in both buildings utilize the other buildings for egress. So that was part of the reason why we combined the two, is that they function and structure, they function as a singular building, both in terms of zoning and in terms of their previous occupancy. These buildings were previously occupied by the Chase Bank. When Chase and JP Morgan merged in the early or mid 2000s, the 483 building, the smaller brownstone looking building, became the JP Morgan private banking office, and the Chase Bank at 475 Bloomfield became the main branch. As you guys were involved in the planning board as well, or maybe the zoning board, this branch has consolidated its operations into a newly constructed building across North Fullerton on the parking lot that used to service these buildings. And at that time, we purchased the two buildings from JP Morgan Chase with the intent of an adaptive reuse plan. The adaptive reuse plan that was on our that was in our business plan at that time has gone through a couple of maturations. We had looked at expanding both buildings in terms of adding square feet, in terms of filling in some of the large, expansive, voluminous center corridors, similar to what Bob Silver and his company did just up the block at the PNC Bank. And we had looked at this as a myriad of options, including retail, office, and residential uses. We've landed on a plan that really separates the building into three components, whereas it used to be historically separated into two. As I mentioned, 483 was the private banking building, and 475 was in its entirety a bank branch of about 27,000 square feet. As banks started not needing 27,000 square feet, that singular occupancy of 475 Bloomfield became a challenge. We have explored looking at this building as a single tenant user since our purchase in 2015, and I'm sorry, in 2017. And we have not identified a tenant who wants to take the building in its current form, despite some pretty close calls there and some pretty good efforts towards that. And we've come to the conclusion that we need really three uses in this building, or in these buildings. So the proposal here, in its broadest sense, is to renovate the facade of 483 Bloomfield Avenue. You'll see in your renderings that were submitted earlier this week, which I hope everybody has. You don't need to go to the rendering yet, but you'll see there that there's some specific signage associated with that building. That signage is representative of an actual tenant that plans to take that whole building and continue the office use that has historically been in that building. I'm sorry?
David, I think the use issue has to be separated, because I don't think that that's a historical office use, it's a bank use. And to go to office, I think you need to go to the zoning board and get a use variance. Just point that out. This building was never open to the public. So this building was a back office use for JP Morgan. It was a bank. No, it was a bank. I just wanted to go from a bank, which is permitted, to an office.
Oh, no, I'm happy. And if we want to take that offline, we can. But I'm saying that there were two different uses between these two different buildings, and 483 was not a public bank open to the public. It was historically.
That'll
an
be
office building,
that'll be a separate discussion, but I just want to put you on notice of that.
Understood. So the signage that is noted on this plan is specific to a tenant that is interested in taking the entirety of 483. Our intent on this is to improve the windows that have been there for a long time. They are falling apart. They are vinyl windows. There are combinations of different kinds of windows. There's not a consistency to it. And we also want to repair the awnings that are there that are also falling apart, and then do some lighting and facade upgrades to make that building a little bit more attractive to an office user, as it's been vacant for a couple of years. On the 475 side, we propose to split this building into two uses. The Bloomfield Avenue entrance will continue to be a retail tenant. We do not have an identified retail tenant at this time, so we're not proposing any signage related to that retail tenant. That will take up what used to be the public component of the bank. And then we propose to add a new entry to the building on the North Fullerton side, which would serve to enter the building into a new lobby, new stair corridor, new elevator corridor that would bring people to the office uses that were historically on the second and third floor and not open to the public. Because before this application, the only way to access those office uses was through internal staircases within the retail space. So the intent of this plan, and Janice, we will certainly pick up the use conversation, but the intent of this plan is to create entryways for people who are going specifically to the various uses that will be associated with this building. And the entryway on North Fullerton is to service the office component of this building. The facade upgrades on 475 are similar to the facade upgrades on 483, both in terms of style. We wanted to keep the buildings somewhat connected as they have been historically, but also in terms of just overall aesthetic and what we were trying to accomplish. We're trying to make the building a little bit more attractive to users that aren't a bank. It's a very specific bank building, and we're going to have to train tenants to not think of it as a specific bank building. But we are very sensitive to the historic qualities of the building, and certainly the beautiful windows and beautiful facade and beautiful stonework on this building. And our intent was not to bastardize those things in any way, not to go in and dismantle anything or come in with anything too aggressive. So that's just the broad overview of what our plan and intent is. I will let John Buckholtz, our architect, go over specifics on each. And if we want to start at 483, John, I think that's a good place to start, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Can I just interject? Thank you for the overview. I think it's very important to have that when we look at this. And it's exciting to see this property being thought of. And I think the overall look will be very good. But I just want to make sure that the commissioners know that we are only looking at the facade of this, the exterior, and how the different things that they plan to do will fit in with the historic district. So with that, maybe Mr. Buckland can start with your plans for the building at 483.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much. This building, being the off to the left, 483, our intention is to restore what's there and change out, as David said, the windows. So the upper portion of the building has great detail, historic detail, which we plan to clean that limestone. So the top of the building is very dirty. Our plan is to clean all of that stone with specific chemicals as to not damage the stone or do anything with it. We are looking to replace the windows. We have details in here of the Anderson 400 windows, which are a clad product, and provide the wider mullions within the windows. The panels that are below some of these or above them are going to match the windows that are there. We plan on if you look at the drawing sort of in the center, there's 3 sort of window openings that have black iron railings. Those are going to remain. We're going to repair those. Our plan is to repair them, paint them, and we're going to paint them a black finish. Right now, there are canopies on the lower level. They are sort of a half round bellows kind of canopy. Our plan is to take off the canvas, which is damaged, and to repair the structure below and provide a new black canvas awning over those structures to match what's there today. We're replacing the windows and the doors on the first floor. We are also going to repoint anything that needs repointing across this facade around the detailed ornate moldings and apertures to the building. Our plan is to also wash the granite base that sits at the bottom. It's very similar in color to the building above. And again, we have the similar black iron grills that are on the lower level windows that bring some light into the lower portion of the building. Those will be scraped, repaired, and those would be painted black also. So there's really not much more to the facade. It's pretty straightforward. Upper stone, granite base, windows and doors, and the black iron are the pieces that will be restored and brought back to their original luster.
Thank you. Janice, do you have a close-up of that, that building? Is there one in the plan that you could?
Janice, I think there's a picture that was a part of this.
Let's see.
A3 has a photo. Would that help? A photo itself? That's
Well,
a
wait, did you want the renderings or did you want?
A3 has a picture, Janice?
All right, let me get to page A3. Did you submit your plans on separate pages? Is that it?
Corey from my office sent it. I don't think so. It's noting 505.
Yeah. It seems to be, when I uploaded what was sent, it's just one page, 5 of 5.
No,
This is the only-
definitely.
Oh, there we go, I got
Definitely
it.
more than one page, yeah, okay.
I got it,
Okay.
sorry. All right, so this is page 1. I was at page 5. So which page do you want me to go to?
It's probably 3 because it's.
There we go.
Let's go one more. There you go. See the picture to the lower left. Does that help?
Well, yes, that's the current situation, correct? Can you
Yes.
make that can you blow that up, Janice, at all?
Yep, I can. Let's see. Right.
Do dynamic zoom,
All right, thank you.
and then you just roll your,
That went the wrong way.
wrong way.
How do I get out of dynamic zoom? Oh,
Now we all miss the easels.
yeah, there we go. Well, my computer's it got a little stuck there. I'm on page 4. We want to go back to page 3.
This
Okay.
is actual drawing. Wait a minute. That was a blow up for a second. Can you go back, Janice? This might help. I think. Is that the chairman asking the questions before?
Yes, to get a
Page
Right here.
4.
Do you see on the
Okay.
bottom there, Chairman, does that help what you're looking for?
Well, I thought we should be able to see the whole facade up on the top right. Up, Janice, it
There.
was on the
Oh,
top.
there you go. Okay.
Is there any way dare I ask? Okay.
I think you've been spoiled with Graham. I think it's the best I can do.
Okay. Well, if everyone can look at this and then maybe look at your the renderings that were sent, because we do have those in large format.
I have the renderings. I can pull up any of the renderings.
Well, this is part of what the renderings were, the plan. Maybe that's better, Janice. Okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, yes. Okay, so do you have anything else to add to your testimony, or is?
No, I think that generally includes, there is going to be the site tracker sign as you see it that resides between the first and second floor. And we were also across both buildings to keep a uniform line. We were providing an uplight, an LED light that's below that main upper molding, which would run at the same level between the buildings to uplight that cornice. Other than that, Chairman, for this building, that's pretty much what we are providing.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just have a question. The color that it looks as though it's pretty uniform in color between 483 and 473. Is that correct, or is that just a visual image that you've created here? I seem to think of it as being.
The left side, the building that we're talking about is somewhat, I'm trying to give you a correct, it's beigeier
Yes, okay.
than the other building, but it's not 5 tones darker.
Yes.
Sometimes when you provide these rendering services, your pictures, they only get so close.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was the case. So perhaps now we could start with questioning from our commissioners. We'll go, Mr. Rooney, why don't we start with, do you have any questions?
I see that you're changing the layout of the front doors.
Well, right now, we're trying to get ADA accessibility. So by providing the double doors, we get the full opening.
Okay.
The existing door doesn't meet ADA. And I have to apologize. I'm looking at again what was on there.
Well, isn't it's single door with side lights?
Yes.
Right.
It's currently a single door with side lights. It becomes a double door, but the opening size doesn't change, Mr. Ray. It doesn't, we're not proposing to change the
You're not changing the limestone.
We're
No.
not changing the limestone, no.
Right. Wasn't it in Mr. Connolly's comments something about the arched awnings? I sort of remember seeing that, but I can't find it.
What, do you have a question, Mr. Rooney?
It was the question that I had was Connolly had said something about the arched awnings. Was inappropriate?
No, I don't think I mentioned anything about the awnings, actually.
There wasn't any mention of awnings.
Okay, then that's something I dreamt.
Okay, but we'll maybe continue that. Somebody else has another question.
No, otherwise, I think everything's fine. I think the proportions are right, and that the might be the correct brand of windows to use.
Okay. Mr. Reimnitz, do you have any questions?
Yes, one or two questions. We're just talking about 483 right now?
Yes.
Okay. When you say renovate the facade, I know along the base of that building, there are quite a few cracks through the existing stone. And it looks like some of it's beginning to spall away. I see some cement covering some of the limestone along the base, and some limestone missing. So when you say renovate the facade, are you really going to renovate the facade, or are you just going to?
Return, really the word is restore. I'm not sure it was renovate. You're correct. There will be cracks which get filled in very carefully to color match. Any place where it needs to be pointed, the color of the grout will be color matched. There are holes in the facade that have been there from time. Some of the plaques, some of the holes you see today will be covered because the existing signage was removed. The new signage will match the color and the type of signage that was there before, which will handle some of that signage. Some of the signage had what I'll argue is some sort of anchors that were put into the stone. Those will be drilled out, and we will carefully fill with materials that we can infill and buff to match the existing. It's never perfect, but it's to the best that we can restore the facade.
I would like to point out, though, that on the drawings, there is currently a note that says chips and limestone will be patched with mortar, and that's not correct.
Mr. Connolly, we happily agree to your comment in the report about patching with composite patching. So we will happily live up to point number 5 on your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Caroline Kane-Levy.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Do we know what the historic window configuration was? Have you looked at historic photos to see what the original windows?
We've looked at old photos. I don't know if they've been historic photos. I don't know if they meet the qualification of being considered historic. The windows that have been in there now appear to have been there for 40 years plus. They are not. I'm sorry. Someone's computer. I'm having a hard time hearing.
Chair Bennett, if you could we can hear you moving your pages around, so I had to mute you. All right, David, go ahead.
Sorry. So the short answer to your question is no, we don't have original photos of what this looked like. We did do a couple of searches to try to find some older pictures of this building, but most of the pictures reflect what's there now or some version of what's there now, which is not a historic window. So this was our attempt to come up with something attractive that we felt lived within the aesthetic of what the building was, but it is not an attempt, or it's not an intentional attempt to recreate something we knowingly knew existed 100 years ago.
Okay, well, my concern or recommendation would be, if I understand you're just replacing the top 3 windows, not the second floor windows.
No, we are also replacing the second floor windows.
We're doing all of them.
Oh, you are, because drawings don't say that. They say you're retaining them in the second floor windows. I have no problem with replacing all the windows, but I would be concerned that you first try to identify either the original drawings or an older photograph to show what that original configuration would be, and try to go back to that. So this is hypothetical. We could find out what that was.
Well, there has been research. It's not, it's not that we've just come in.
I don't know where to find that information other than the resources we utilize to try to find that information. We don't have original drawings of the building. We're not part of our purchase package. And we've gone to the same lengths we try to go to on most of our applications to understand what the original intent was. But we get lost in a void of the 60s, 70s, 50s. There's a gap between when we can see and when we can't see.
Okay.
I'm happy to, by the way, the configuration of the windows, I'm assuming you're talking mostly about the dividers and whether or not those dividers are in the right places for this. I am happy to take the commission's advice on whether or not they'd like to see these mullions be in a different pattern or configuration. This was our attempt, but I'm not wed to that grid pattern. If anybody feels that grid pattern is not authentic, we take your advice and we'd be happy to do it as long as it lives within a somewhat off-the-shelf window we can buy, and it doesn't mean that we have to go create something that doesn't exist.
I was wondering if Mr. Connolly had some insight into this at all.
For the most part, I didn't have an issue with the windows that they're proposing. There were not any details about the buttons on the drawing, so I did ask for more information about that.
And at the parlor floor, I mean, the second floor, historically?
Yeah, so in looking at this building closer, actually on site, the original, what looks to be the original wood frames for these windows do exist. They're still there. The windows that are currently there are replacements. I do not know what the original windows were. But like I said, the actual wood frames for these windows on the second and third floors currently exist, and they should remain. So they should just be replacing the sashes, not the actual window frame.
Well, is that something that you can assist in maybe trying to locate either an older photograph or a drawing that might give us a better clue as to what the original windows were?
I'd be glad to.
Yeah. And then presently the transom above the windows at the second floor, is that a metal panel? Is that an infill panel?
It is an infill panel.
And how do you intend to replace that? Is it going to be a clear glass or is it going to be on that?
We were going to make it just an infill panel. It was not going to be clear glass.
Drop ceiling behind it?
Yes, more than likely there will be a ceiling behind that when someone comes in.
Okay, well, I think that
unless the committee wants it glass.
I think probably originally it would have been glass, and if that's achievable, I would encourage you to look at that.
May I just jump in here now along what Caroline is considering? I did find, I don't think, and it wasn't part of our package from the Junior League. This would have been a 1982 picture of what was there. And you could see that the third floor windows were a large 1/1 sash. And then the second floor windows, it appears to be French doors that opened, and they are the 3 configuration. So I can certainly, if you don't have this, I could send this to you through the planning department. And also the 1950s, I forgot the name of the gentleman who did photo renderings of Bloomfield Avenue. There's a
Those are the Teague.
Yes. So he's got the same, it appears if you look at it with a magnifying glass that the third floor looks 1/1 and then the second floor looks like that. But of course the transom is glass, not shaded what you have there now. So we could send these if you would like to look at them in more detail.
Yeah. No, I think they would be helpful, but I think that we are kind of showing the dimensional qualities of what's there. Like David had indicated, we just put more of the mullions in there, thinking it looked more historic. And one of the other reasons when we get to the other building was we were trying to keep a look on the 2 buildings that when we're putting the mullions in on the other building, the mullions are on this building. So it kind of reads from one building to the other. The upper halves are similar, in the same family. So this will have 1/1 and the other ones will have mullions in them. So that was part of the reason for the mullions, is to blend the 2 of them together.
But,
Okay.
yeah, but then there are no muntins on the second floor windows. So that looks a little
Hmm.
too.
Those are articulating. Those are part of the same series, right, John? Those are the same
Yes.
series of windows, but they're French doors. They're not fixed windows.
Right.
And since they didn't have it now, we didn't think that. I mean, I don't have a problem putting the dividers on. I'm not wed to it, but we tried to give as best an indication of what we thought was there. And since those two do differ now, we figured that they differed in the past. But that could be wrong. We could be wrong about that.
Okay. So I think that needs a little further development. And if in fact we do determine that the top floor windows were 6/6 and that's the way to go, I just want to make sure that you're proposing with exterior muntins, not just between the glass muntins, but something
These
that.
are exterior muntins. Yes, these are exterior. And if the pattern, if anybody determines that the pattern should be different, we are happy to take that into consideration. We're happy to agree to that. This pattern was our best efforts, but they are exterior muntins, and they will continue to be. And we're happy to add them on the second floor if anybody feels strongly about it.
Okay, and then so beyond the windows, regarding the signage, I did notice on the drawing that it said that it was. If I describe this correctly, let me know, or if I'm not accurate. It's got stainless steel opaque letters with a halo lit sign applied to a urethane or polyurethane, the back. So this is something that we've been discussing about signage and our guidelines regarding signage, that we'd prefer to see wood or metal as opposed to something like a styrofoam backing, which is what this section is showing right now.
David, probably, go ahead.
Chairman,
Yes.
point of order. Are we asking questions now or commenting?
Yes, it's well.
Questions?
I can pose it as a question.
Okay.
What is the backing of this sign, the blue part with the cloud?
That is metal. I'm trying to look at what you see that says urethane. It might be that there's an infill that you wouldn't see that has that component to it, but from looking at it, the entire sign is metal. The sign has metal letters with a metal backing, and the halo lighting does not project forward, which I also know is one of Mr. Connolly's comments. It's not a internally illuminated sign like a McDonald's sign. It is halo lit in the spirit of some of the other signs in the neighborhood, but it is metal on metal. I'm talking while I'm looking for
David,
that note.
It's the halo. It's the halo in sight. That is urethane.
Which is urethane?
It's the above SIT. There's that kind of logo, bubbles, curves. David, just that little bit of signage against the foam board. I don't see why the signage people.
Yeah, I'm happy to CNC that out of metal. I didn't notice the note, but I'm happy to change that to metal. It should be metal.
It's a small piece of the sign that had that. It's limited.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Hyman. Thank you, Caroline. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Connolly's comment about the signage in his report about confirming that it conformed to zoning.
The site tracker sign does conform to zoning.
Okay.
I didn't see any issue about it in terms of the design of the sign and its location on the building.
And if I could just ask the applicant, what's the what's the rationale for having the sign there, since this isn't a retail use, it's an office use? Just having such a large illuminated sign.
I don't know that I can exactly to what the applicant's intent, to what the tenant's intent is, but they do see a benefit to having prominent signage within the retail zone. Part of it is probably that they think that they're entitled to it based on the sign ordinance, and so they don't want to lose out on any presence. If the sign needed to be smaller, I don't think that they would have an issue with that if we wanted to shrink it, but it was designed to be conforming. But this was their signage intent. This is what they think that they want people to see when they approach the building, both guests, visitors, conference people, and we're executing their plan on the signage more so than mine. But I am happy to take comments back to them if the commission has any.
David, I just point, or John, does part of the sign cover the metal awning? The metal, I guess you'd say, railing for the windows above?
It probably hits a little bit, to the left. I'm looking for my elevation. It's minimal.
Just to back up, sorry guys, John didn't design the sign. This was designed by a signage, their signage company. I'm executing it. So I'm just, if I can fill in, the intent was for the cloud to live between the two balconies. If it wasn't referenced on the rendering properly, or if it reads funny, our intent with the sign manufacturer is to make sure that it doesn't do what you just suggested that it does, and that it lived within the band, and that the cloud lived within the void between the two balconies.
Janice, can you remove that box in the upper right-hand corner of your screen?
That's your face.
No.
You mean that box?
Not that one.
It says find.
It says find.
There you go.
Does you get to see the elevation a little bit better? Does that help answer the question? It's basically meant to be centered there, as David said. I'm hoping that helps a little bit.
Okay. I think we could see that. Any other questions, Mr. Hyman? No?
No other questions.
Mr. Greenbaum, do you have any questions?
I think we lost him.
Oh, let me see if I have to get back to my.
I have a few more questions when you come back around.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I don't see David Greenbaum anymore.
It's not there right now.
No.
So, John, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I'm confused about the entry door into 383. On the plans, it's shown as a single door, 3 feet wide, but in the rendering, you're showing 2 doors that would be 2'8" wide each. It would be less than 2'8" wide because they'd each be 2'6" wide. And that's handicapped accessible, individual doors, 2'6"?
David, let me defer to David. David, are we going to 2 doors or the single door?
I didn't realize that there was a conflict in the plan. It was meant to be, it was meant to be 2 doors, and the rendering, I believe, is accurate. So I think the rendering drives this, John, not the elevation, and I apologize for an inconsistency.
Well, that's okay. I just want, and so then it becomes an architectural, maybe it's not the venue or the purview of this commission, but I didn't realize that 2 separate 2'6" doors would be handicapped accessible. But that's.
No, we would have to make them 2 3-foot doors. And when we get into the final details, we'll make sure that requirement is met.
Well, you can't do that because you have a dimension there of 3 feet with 1'2" on either side. You only have 5'4" in between there. So unless you take away the masonry, you're not going to get 2 3-foot doors. So just think about that a little bit. I don't think that may be completely done with. And then the other question I have is the lighting up at the cornice. The plans that I have say that this is grazing light pointed down.
It is.
I heard in the presentation it was pointing up. Is it?
No, it is a wall washer pointing down.
Sorry about that. That's my mistake.
Okay. Then I would have a question about the lighting. When I look at it closely, it has like a lens that's attached to a track that must have inlaid LED or something, but there is no baffle. You're going to see this light as a light source. You see the actual light source. instead of only the grazing effect of it. What you're going to see it like more like you see in the red dotted lines in the lower right-hand two photos. Yeah, really see that light, right? It has no baffle. Okay.
John, a little background on this light. This light was approved by the Historic Preservation Commission immediately up the street on the PNC Bank building that Bob Silver did. It was also approved by the Historic Preservation Commission on the vestry project that I just completed down Bloomfield Avenue. And so these lights are common on the historic corridor for wall washing. And in both of those applications, they live in similar mounting details to what we're talking about now. In the vestry, they are both at the top in the cornice and on the bottom brick piers pointing upwards. And in Bob Silver's building up the street, they are the same. They are also the same lights that are on the Madison building that point up and down on the walls. So in terms of the fixture, my inspiration for the fixture comes from this board's previous approvals. The intent is to wash the walls down and create a light that is not a bulb. That is not the intent, is to see what you're discussing. However, the implementation of this fixture throughout the historic district, in my opinion, my humble opinion, has been very successfully implemented in a couple of different buildings that I think achieve great light at night. If there is a baffle that you want to see, an accessory baffle to this fixture, I'm happy to add it. And if you would like us to reimagine the fixture and come back to subcommittee with something that solves the problem you think exists, I'm also happy to do that.
That's okay.
But understand that's why we chose this fixture, is that it's been implemented a number of times on the corridor.
Okay, that's all great. I guess I come with a little, not all the information of this being approved previously. I'll have to go look at this fixture. Essentially, the intent of what you're showing is great. I love it. I love the wall washing. I just think you're going to see the source as like a bright light all along the bottom. And I guess I have to go see how it's been installed in other places.
John, you're not wrong. You do see the source in the buildings that I spoke about. I don't think it's an overwhelming brightness. I don't think it's something that is jarring in any way, but you're not wrong that the lights are not invisible in their other applications. I don't think they overwhelm the buildings, but you do see the strip of LED lights in those other applications to some degree. I think Bob Silver's building is hidden a little bit more. He's got a little bit of a deeper cornice and it kind of sits recessed a little bit more. But the vestry and the Madison building, for example, are even more surface mounted than this. They live within maybe a 4 or 5 inch reveal there, and they're more visible. I don't think they're unattractive, but your concern is
the vestry. The vestry is your new building, right? So it's a modern building.
It is.
Okay, that's a modern building, and the Madison is which one?
The Madison is the building 420 Bloomfield Avenue. You've done some work in that building. It's the facade of that building that used to have the Sahana Day Spa, and you did the office work upstairs in that building.
Okay. Well, I will, withdraw. That was just a question. So you answered my question.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. You, on the plans on 4A, you indicate that and I don't know if this is for 483 or 475, a Colby door section, which I guess is the...
It's a brand name.
A brand name, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any examples of that, or do the architects on the commission know this name and think that it would be appropriate? I know the color is midnight black. All doors to be Colby Ultra Series commercial door system. Is that something that's familiar? for an application such as this?
It is. I am familiar with it.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
a higher,
familiar with it too. It's a clad door that'll match the clad material.
Okay. And then my other question is the awnings that are on this building that we're looking at, which fill the arch. Would we consider those to be, and they're on the building already, I understand you're just going to recover them. I just want to point that out, that they're already on the building, and whether or not we would consider these to be bubble awnings or another type of awning that were for the next building, which are not suggested within our guidelines. So I just wanted to point that out while we're looking at this building. Okay, then. Everyone's asked questions. Anyone else have any other questions of the applicant?
I have not an opportunity to ask questions.
David Greenbaum, are you on?
I'm on. I'm having difficulty with my computer.
Yeah, you're creating a lot of feedback. The call-in user 4 is David Greenbaum.
Hold on. I'm off the phone. I'm now on the computer.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's much better.
I'm trying to stay on. My computer just keeps going blue on me, and I have to reboot.
Okay.
So, if I may, Chairman, am I able to ask questions at this time?
Yes, please. We couldn't find you before.
I was there, but I was intermittently jumping off because I couldn't stay. Again, my screen just died again.
But we can hear you, David.
We can hear you. Ask questions, David.
So, well, one question I had is underneath the ground floor windows astriding the front door, there are openings. I assume there's light traveling through. Is there a basement or a subterranean area that's getting light from those areas?
There are 2 basement levels in this building. Unlike anything I've ever seen in my history working in Montclair, it seems as though they added a sub-basement. So there are 2 levels underground on this building. The basement that you're referring to, where the grills are, that will be activated as part of this tenancy. They will occupy some of that space. The sub-basement from there will end up being mechanical. So the basement, just for your edification, the basement level that would be serviced by these grills is going to be like an employee lounge for them, a bathroom. It's going to be, I wouldn't call it back of house space because it's internal to their use, but it is not going to be public facing space. They're not bringing clients or anybody else down there. It's like where their data equipment lives. It's where their little cafeteria for their office space lives. And it's where a bunch of bathrooms live.
Okay. Again, I guess I'm restricting my questions to just the Village Arts building on the left. Oh, lost me again.
It's good for you.
So if I disappear, it's because my computer is having a devil day. So my question on the signage, you were talking 2 issues that were discussed already. The signage issue, I believe, I don't know if I got disconnected, but is that signage, you had stated that the tenant wished to retain their right to like a retail type signage, but it really is an office tenant. You had said that you were open to feedback. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, we're open to feedback. This was a I don't want to call it a first pass because we are hoping that we have your enthusiastic support after this meeting. But that being said, the tenant is open to comments on the signage. We did look at a variety of different kinds of signs, including projecting signs, including smaller plaque signs, and including window graphics or door graphics. Just to give you the feedback, the tenant did want some more visibility than either door graphics or plaque signage only, and was hoping that it would be something like this, something more like a retail-like sign. The tenant does have a brand. Site Tracker is the 2nd or 3rd largest construction management software company in the world. They think that brand translates, and they think that people will recognize them. And so they wanted some visibility to that. But they're open to projecting signs if somebody wanted that. And I'm sure they are open to this sign being a different size, although it is conforming. They are open to this sign being smaller if anybody felt that it was larger to it. But they did ask me to move away from simply a plaque or a door sign. They wanted more visibility than that.
I'll hold off my comments on that. The windows that my colleague brought up on the second floor, the question was the panel above the French floor, was that going to be glass? You stated it was opaque, and I just want to confirm, she asked a question, Caroline asked a question, if there's a drop ceiling, is there any reason that has to be opaque?
It does have to be opaque in some way. I'm not opposed to it being opaque glass instead of an infill aluminum panel of any kind, but there will be, it won't be an acoustical style ceiling, but there will be a dropped sheetrock ceiling, as currently there's no insulation or structure between the second and third floor. This will be an active use when it is happening. There will be people walking upstairs. There will be sliding chairs and other things. We do need to be sensitive to the sound between floors, and that will likely, not likely, that will impact the ceiling height on the second floor to some degree. So I believe that panel can be, could be black glass if that's what you wanted to, but it being fully see-through, you would end up seeing structure and mechanicals.
Would it be possible to set back the soffit of the ceiling and just have,
Hello?
Hello?
I just want to say I'm back. If you can hear me?
Yes.
And we can hear you.
I'm calling from a phone now. My screen totally died. So you were just saying you're not reluctant to put a glass inset on top as opposed to a.
I'm not. No. I'm certainly. I don't think it was vinyl that was proposed. I think it was aluminum, but certainly not opposed to putting glass. However, at my last comment was you will see structure and mechanicals if the glass is transparent. The glass would theoretically have to be opaque. To Ms. Levy's comment about moving the soffit back from the inside, it is one long conference room that is proposed on those 3 floors. I think our tenants would not. I don't know that they'd want to have a separation in their ceiling height in there. There are acoustic panels that are planned in there. There's data and AV equipment that's going in that ceiling, recessed microphones, recessed speakers. I think we are going to have to keep that ceiling height consistent. I hear the concern. I just don't know how to solve it. My objection to putting, I don't have an objection to putting glass, but I don't know that the current plan supports anything that doesn't have some structure between the 2 floors.
Okay. Thank you for answering that question. The only other issue I had was on the wall washers at the grazing lights that John brought up. I believe the ones in on the PNC building, there's no dent. It's not like they're resting underneath dental work. What I wanted to understand is the top cornice has a dental a molding along the cornice, and I'm wondering, is there a flat surface? Will this in any way disrupt the cornice? A straight line of LED lights on the top.
I can speak. I can only speak to the 2 buildings that I had something to do with. I don't know, the installation details well enough of Mr. Silver's building to determine how he installed it. But on the Madison building, and also which I installed, and also on the Vestry building, both of those are affixed in a similar manner to this, where they are affixed on a cornice as a surface mounted fixture that washes either down or up. Sorry,
Yeah, whoever's looking at their plans, keep it away from the microphone because it's disrupting the audio.
Are you talking to me?
I don't know who's moving plans. You got to keep it away from your
not me.
microphone.
Yeah. So David, I'm not
Yeah.
opposed to changing some of the mounting details. And like I said earlier, I don't know if you missed it, I'm not opposed to changing the fixture. If the fixture is something the commission doesn't want, this is a fixture that was previously approved in similar mounting details up and down Bloomfield Avenue. That's why we carried it. It's more the intent we're passionate about and not the fixture itself. We had conceived,
David,
John, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just want to say my issue is not so much the fixture at the moment. The question I was asking is because unlike the other buildings where there's a straight cornice, as opposed to the cornice of this building having, actually, no, I take it back. It's the building next door that has the dental work. That I had a question about, so maybe I'll hold that off. But that's my concern. Of it shouldn't disrupt the cornice, the dental work of the cornice. And I'm actually thinking of the building next door. So we'll hold up until the next conversation.
Okay.
So I'm not raising any issue other than how it will work on this particular building, not the fixture itself.
Understood.
Okay.
And I don't
Thank
have the
you.
visual right now, so yeah.
Thanks. So if there are no other questions from the commission members, could I ask Mr. Conley to refer to his memo and just to go over what you, concerning this building, 483, and what your comments were for this.
So for this specific building, I think we touched on a majority of my comments. The only two remaining ones was there seemed to be in some of the historic photographs that there were two sconces on either side of the facade at the first floor level. In the photographs, and actually there is scoring currently on the building. So I would throw that out there as a suggestion. Maybe those could be reinstalled.
What historic photos are you talking about?
In the district nomination report, there's a historic photograph in that report.
I didn't see
Yeah,
it.
I don't think that wasn't part of the packet that came, but and it's hard to make out. So Tom, can you describe where they would have been? Is it in between the?
No, it's on either side of the facade at the extreme ends.
Oh, not on either side of the main door.
No.
Okay.
So they do show up in the historic photograph, and like I mentioned, there are scarring remnants of a base plate and a hole for where the conduit went in that has been infilled.
Right.
And the only other comment was on the drawings, it mentions cleaning of the brick at the rear facade, actually for both buildings, and it's currently painted. So was the intent to remove the paint from the brick or just?
No, actually, that one, you taught us something on that one, Tom, because it's so color matched that we didn't realize until your comment that, in fact, that back facade is actually painted and the side facade is a stained brick or a colored brick. The intent is to leave the two to be similarly colored, so I'm happy to incorporate your comment and either paint it to be similarly colored or you know, I guess that's the only thing we can do is repaint it to be similarly colored. We're also happy to make that back facade a different color. If anybody thought that looked better, I would be surprised if the red or whatever color brick that's underneath that paint is more attractive than the cohesive color around. But if someone wanted it to be that way, that's not a meaningful facade to us on the garage, and I'm happy to paint it, clean it, you know, whatever you want.
Yeah, my thought is somebody painted it for a reason. So undoing the paint, removing the paint might cause more harm than good.
No, our intent is to keep those two facades similarly colored, and being that they have two different treatments, we would color match the paint to keep it the same.
Yeah, for this building, I think we addressed all of my comments, or the commission has.
Well, we haven't commented yet. We've just been asking questions.
No, we've just been asking questions. So thank you, Tom. And why don't we go ahead now with the discussion. I think, Mr. Rooney, you started it off with the questions. Do you have any thoughts? Remember, everybody, this is for a certificate of appropriateness. So what we say here is what will happen.
The library has historic photographs of these buildings. I just looked them up, and it's on the first 100 photos there, and you'll see that the building on the west is pretty much what it was, except it does have 1/1 windows.
Yeah,
And
that's the correct way to do that.
the building on the east, the main facade between the two columns has been heavily changed. There used to be a tripart, and you can see that in the drawings too. But otherwise,
So are you suggesting then, is it you're suggesting that the third floor window be 1/1?
yeah, that's what it says from the 1935 photo.
Right, okay.
1/1s.
Well,
And
does at the second floor, does it have casements with a transom?
yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a silly question? What is 1/1? Does that mean no mullions?
Correct.
That's correct.
Right.
Yes.
It's a plain double hung window.
What's existing, David?
Understood.
Yes.
Understood. Okay. This is the first time I would push back against something historic. I tend to think that the dividers are more attractive than a simple double hung window.
Well,
you guys
I
would
would
be
just look at the original photographs. And you make up your mind.
Okay.
The original photographs are 1/1.
Understood.
Okay, Mr. Hyman? Discussion?
Yeah, my comment is just limited to that site tracker logo. I would like to see something a little bit smaller, and definitely want to ensure that the cloud stays within the railing for the windows. I don't want to see that obstructed. And I think it should be decreased in size because we don't want to see any obstruction from different angles. If it's straight on, it could be tight in there, but as you're walking on the street, it will obscure. But I just
No issues with that.
Reduction.
Okay, who's next? Miss Caroline?
These are my comments. Okay.
Yes.
I think just as historic documentation showed that those were 1/1 at the top floor, I think that they should remain 1/1. Can't set the ceiling back at the transom of the second floor windows in some way to do clear glass, then I would accept a opaque glass in that transom area.
Mhm.
And with regard to the sign, I think it could work here, but I agree it should be smaller and not exceed the width of that flat band of that cornice. And then the logo could jump a little bit outside of that, but I don't know what the dimension of the cornice is with relation to the width of the sign. So I would have to down.
David's back.
David has landed.
Keep coming and going. I'm sorry.
Okay, who's next?
Kathleen?
No, John. Oh, David, who's next? Who's next?
I'll comment next. I think, even before you found that photograph, Steve, I would have said 1/1 on the top, on the third floor windows.
Right.
That's really the correct sort of arrangement for this style of architecture.
Right.
A lot on the Upper East Side in townhomes and so on, and it's really correct. So I would support 1/1. I don't believe that you cannot solve the second floor transom as glass. There's some depth there. There's some detail that can be done. People are very creative. I'm sure the architect is very skilled, that you can make that glass. And then finally, our two final points, I would say I would like to understand whether this is one door, two doors at the entry, what we're approving, and that we are restoring this stonework, especially along the bottom, where we're filling in cracks with composite material, we're matching existing mortar, and I would suggest that upon that there be samples done of that for approval of members of the commission there when you get around to that point of doing that. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. David?
Okay, so I strongly agree with the idea of using a glass insert above the French doors on the second floor. I have no trouble with it being opaque. So that's a definite. I have view of the building now, so again, those down lights, the grazing lights, now that I'm looking, I just want to make sure it's on the record that the light should not in any way interfere with any of the motifs or ornamentation. Because this building has basically the horizontal banding, and if there's like a little bit of a trophy hanging from the top of the cornice or from the kind of the capital, I just want to make sure that if the uplighting is fine, like I wouldn't mind seeing uplighting on the banding up just below the French doors going up. I don't know about coming down, and that was what I was concerned about. I lost visibility, so I couldn't specify. So if I'm not, I hope that's clear. I'm just concerned about any interference with the ornamentation on the top. I think the uplighting is great, going from that band.
That's a good point, David. I think that's a very good point. And is there any way that we would be able to see that in some kind of mock-up beforehand? The downlighting as opposed to uplighting?
I can commit right now. I like that comment. We had tried to mirror the lighting between the two buildings, and there isn't a ledge on 475 anywhere that allows us to do the same treatment that David just suggested on 483. But that being said, I'm not opposed to eliminating it from the cornice and installing it on the band facing upwards. I think that would be very attractive, and I think that would hopefully solve some of John Reimnitz's concerns as well, because you would not see the direct bulb. I like that better. So if anybody wants to make that a commitment, I'm certainly happy to live in that.
I think it'd be fine.
I agree with that, but I'm talking now about the signage, not the lighting. I don't want to see the signage on that horizontal band going across. I just think
I don't know where else to put it. I mean, if you wanted it, trust me, we looked at it. I mean, I can't share stuff with you guys. Or Janice, can I share my screen if I had a couple of attachments? Is that possible?
No, you can't.
Okay.
Whatever you present has to be given to me in advance.
Understood. We did look at some alternates of that sign being underneath that band, and just candidly, it looked awkward. It looked funny. It looked like we missed. It looked like we tried to install it somewhere and then we just somehow didn't. The lighting, though, is what I was talking about. Is taking those fixtures that were pointing down from the cornice and putting them pointing up from the ledge. In terms of the signage, I don't know if there's an idea of where to put it. I mean, we could affix it to these grills, but that doesn't seem like a good idea.
No. Am I muted? I don't know if I'm muted, but
no, we can hear you.
So I kind of envision it more like a plaque on the side of the door, something discreet, and or perhaps a blade-mounted sign hanging, projecting off the face of the building. Again, kind of like the coffee place next door. as a blade mounted sign. So I just think that the sign is like putting a Mickey Mouse ear on something very dignified.
Yeah, no, David, I agree with you. But I don't know if you got caught when you were cutting out, that this is something that the tenant wants.
What I'm trying,
They did present those options that would probably be more consistent with the historic nature of the building. But the problem that we're facing is they're entitled to that sign as of right. And I mean, if they are going to put it anywhere, that's probably the best place. But again, I'd like to see it minimized.
Okay, can I make another comment about that sign?
Mhm.
On the 1935 picture, that sign band says Essex Title Guarantee and Trust Company across the whole thing. It's individual letters. So maybe if we could make the sign so it actually fits in the band,
Mhm.
because, you know,
Right.
and
pin mounted on a fascia.
you could do that. That's how it originally was. It was just mounted right directly to the fascia.
So what you're saying is that the height of the letters would be the height of that
Or
ledge
within it. Or
within it. And then the cloud would, I believe that's a cloud. I think that's how you described it, would
Yes.
come up higher and it would sit in between the two railings.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do that. Yeah, happy to do that.
I think the bottom line is, David, is if you can kind of guide the tenant and say, look, the Historic Preservation Commission felt very strongly that we come back with something that's more dignified and appropriate with the building. You know, if there's a blade sign that incorporates their logo, that's fine. Put a plaque on the side incorporates their logo and like a nice metal or bronze, that's fine. But it's kind of like Mickey Mouse on a beautiful building. It's really, I think that they have to consider the aesthetic of their logo in the context of the building.
Right.
And I don't know how we can condition it in some way. I don't know how we can frame it so that it's binding, but I think there needs to be a little bit of an intermediary of David talking to the tenant, helping them understand why it's important to do it in a certain way. And I think ultimately it serves the tenant's interests even better, in my opinion.
I'm happy to agree to leaving it within the sign band as it was done. I'm happy to pin mount that sign as well, although part of the reason there's a raceway on here is my experience in front of this commission historically, penetrating these facades over and over and over again. And with this number of letters, it would be a number of penetrations I've found to be not something that the commission is supportive of, and I'm not supportive of. So I think that the raceway is important, but I am willing to keep that within the confines of this band other than the cloud, which would obviously grow a little bit. And I'm happy to commit to that, not blocking the railing. David, again, I don't know that if you got cut out at the time, but I have tried to talk to the tenant about availing themselves of some of the other options in town, and this is what they suggested. So I do have to go forward with a wall-mounted sign as per their requirements. But I've told them that we need to have flexibility on signage, and I've told them that we need to have flexibility on materials. And so I'm happy to commit to that. Urethane note will not be urethane; it'll be part of the metal raceway, and the signage can certainly shrink to fit onto that band a little bit better. But unfortunately, I can't commit to a different type of sign at this time.
Can we make a condition that the sign comes back to a subcommittee for approval?
It could come to the revisions committee.
Yeah. We go to revisions.
Yeah, I would do that because then we're able to actually judge it in situ rather than just speculate.
Right.
Let me also suggest. Let me just also suggest.
As long as the intent. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, just to suggest perhaps that it would be even better if the raceway was the same color as the
building.
as the signboard.
Could be.
I think that
Like,
would
now,
help.
now I'm confused. As the facade, like as the limestone, or,
Yeah,
or as the?
As the
Um,
building.
And then you could pin mount the letters onto that. So the substrate itself holds the pin mounted letters. And
And it would look like a pin mounted sign because the back would match the building. It would look like it's mounted to the individual, it would look like individual letters mounted to the building instead of
that's what I was
a
going
The
to
Mickey
only
Mouse.
Very
The
good.
only concern I have in that is that we're going to live within probably some amount of colors. I don't believe that I can. I mean, I guess I could powder coat it. I'm just trying to think of how I would actually match that color in an aluminum panel that I'm buying.
They can match it.
Yeah, right now you show it as blue, right?
Yeah,
It's shown as blue, but that is
So-
a standard aluminum panel color.
Yeah, but there's probably, I'm guessing that the people who make the paneling, because I have samples, and I'm not supposed to mention that, but of a variety of colors, I'm sure there's got to be something that's available. And if worse comes to worse, there's people who can powder coat it locally.
I don't have an issue with that. The only thing I couldn't commit to is that the cloud be that color because the cloud is integral to their logo. And I don't know that they'd want
Understood.
I don't know that they'd want to change the cloud. But in terms of the actual raceway, I'm comfortable committing to that. And if you want to see a smaller version of this submitted to the revisions committee that incorporates those comments, I'm happy to do it.
Yes, so why don't we have that as one of our conditions, that
Right.
this comes back to the commission, the revisions committee, this particular sign. Sorry, Janice, you've been trying to say something?
I was able to get my comment in. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, so are there any other discussion points, or I think what we before we move on to the next building?
I'd like to just go back to the lighting, just 1 second. Because it's like Dave, if you look at the lighting plans on sheet A2, it's really on the other well, I guess it is shown on sheet A as well. You get this grazing building light, but you lose all the detail at the top of the building, which if you look at the two photographs on the lower right, you're losing all that dental, you lose all the pediment. It seems to me it's backwards. That if you want to, show off the features of this building, somehow you'd like the top of the building.
What does Mr. Silver have on his? Because there's a dental molding all the way down the street.
Yeah, I don't know.
He has both up and down lighting on his. He has
Right.
a ledge that sits similarly to the bottom of these three windows. And he also has a cornice that sits similarly to the top, and there are dual light glazes there. I think I saw Paul Sionis on our list here, who designs that building. If anybody wants to ask him a question,
He could clarify that.
Yeah, but I believe he has both of those light sources kind of meeting in the middle, so that it's a full wall wash. To John's comment, I would like to rescind the way that we have proposed it, and I'd like it to be on that ledge pointing upwards. I think that's a better solution. I don't know why we didn't come up with it in the first place. I think it's partially because we were trying to marry the two together, but I like that as a better option if the commission does. I think
Sure.
that solves the problem that Mr. Imnitz brought up, and I think it's a more discreet way of installing those lights so that they're not interruptive of the facade.
Great.
Okay, great. So why don't we list our conditions now for this building before we go forward? I've been keeping a list. Janice, do you have a list? Graham usually keeps the list for us.
No, I don't think I have all the items.
Okay. All right. So why don't we? I'll just write I'll just recite what I've written down. The windows on the third floor should become a 1/1 configuration. The signage will to remain on that ledge band, but to be smaller, that it fits within the size of the ledge band, with the cloud logo placed between the two railings. There was, should be raceway mounted. The raceway should be the same color as the building, which is sort of a tan color. And then the sign itself would be metal, which is pin mounted on the raceway with the lighting reverse, not reverse, what do you call it? The lighting behind it. Yes, yes. The stonework, that sign will be, the mock-up for that sign will be reviewed by the revisions committee. The stonework, especially the stonework that is on the lower half of the bottom of the building, Tom has point 4 and 5, which is attention should be made to the aggregate and the color, and the limestone chips that patch with the composite patching formulate to match existing stone, not the mortar pointing as indicated on the drawings. I think that's very, very important. And what else? Oh, the lighting. The lighting, rather than be downlit, that the lighting will sit on, I believe it's where the ledge where the windows are. Am I correct in that? And be uplit as opposed to downlit. And then there will be no additional lighting and no additional signage on the building. Correct? You were not asking for anything else, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we have windows.
One other, a couple, that the top transom of the second floor windows is either glass or
Yes.
I would say a back painted black glass or something.
Spandrel glass?
Yeah, like a spandrel glass, that at least you get the reflective qualities, so it's not aluminum. So it looks like glass, a little bit more like glass.
If I could just comment on that point, what I will do, if the commission, with the commission's permission, is I will review the interior drawings and see what we can do to accomplish clear glass. If we can accomplish clear glass, I will accomplish clear glass. We will install it.
That's going to be a great conference room if you can get that glass up there. That's going to be
it will.
fabulous.
It's spectacular.
I can't believe it. They won't love it.
John, just so you know, part of the reason is not just the structure of the ceiling, but they have a number. I don't know if I said this earlier. I apologize if I'm redundant. They have a number of components that are being hung from that ceiling. They have like acoustical clouds that are being hung so that it's a softer sound. They have like microphones and speakers and all types of things that are happening in that ceiling. So it's not just the structure. I have to solve a couple of problems. But if I can, I like the idea of these being full glass too. So if I can, I'm happy to do it. My suggestion, and if we formulate that condition to being that it is glass, and that when I come back with the sign, I will answer the question as to whether or not it's opaque or clear. And I'm asking for a little bit of trust to understand that I will try my hardest to make it clear.
So that will return to the revisions committee as well.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'll bring back what our solution is to that issue, as long as we can just call it glass in the condition and not make a condition of it being clear at this point. I will try, and I will bring it back to the revisions committee.
David.
And the final thing is the doors. The doors, you are going to look whether you're going to investigate whether it can be 1 or 2 doors, but knowing that you cannot go beyond the width of the masonry that's there, that the masonry can't be. Right.
And we would provide that detail. We would provide that detail to the revisions committee as well, as soon as we solve both the code issue and the inconsistency between the rendering and the plan. Allow John Buchholz and I to conference on that, and we're happy to bring that back. There can absolutely be a condition that says that we will not modify the stone facade to accomplish either of those solutions.
Okay. All right. I think that's what we have for the awnings are to remain the same and be recovered. The one thing that Mr. Conley had is about the windows. The window trim remain at the second and third floors, and then the windows that you've indicated on your plan, which are the Anderson, I believe, will be the ones that you'll be using.
That's correct.
Okay. So, okay, we have all those.
Well, there's one additional item that Tom brought up, which had to do with the reinstallation of the sconces from the.
All right.
I would comment on that. I would tend to not do it because I don't believe they are going to be able or will be able or want to be able to create real period pieces there. I think anything that would go there we might not be so happy with it. So I would tend
to John's point, the first thing I said when I heard about the first thing I thought in my head when Mr. Connolly brought up the sconces was the one thing we can't do in the current climate that we're in is go hang out in the Bowery and go find a bunch of really cool old light fixtures. We're kind of limited to sourcing online. We're limited to sourcing from national distributors and not from antique stores at this time. We're not traveling. We can't go to All Good Things in Pennsylvania. And I'd like to.
It's very hard to do, even if you could do it. So,
Right. I'd like to, but I'm happy to do it if there's guidance that way. But I think it would be a challenge to accomplish it, and I don't think we'd do it justice by adding 2 fixtures that we found from a lighting distributor here.
So then the only thing I would suggest then is maybe we should not touch the scarring or the when the facade's cleaned. We want to leave that history or that scarring or the remnants of where there used to be a base plate and a conduit. So in the future, if somebody does want to come by and install some sconces, they know exactly where they were.
How does everyone else feel?
It's an interesting concept, but I would disagree with that.
They're really not that noticeable. Do you think, Tom, that it's that noticeable? It is.
No, it's not. You really have to look for it.
Right. So I think that I don't think that they'd be scrubbing, or taking that away. But it is a good point. It becomes like a ghost sign, a true ghost sign. Okay, so we keep. How does everyone else feel about that? Should that be one of the conditions, that the remnants of the where the sconces were on either side, the visual remnants remain?
Unless you're changing the original signage by the doors was all pin mounted stuff, not plaques. And I don't think you see any scarring from that. I would just make it disappear. You can see this stuff in the original photos.
So what is the consensus is not to try to maintain this scar?
I would fill them in with composite material to make it match.
It's already been filled in. I'm just saying
disappear.
Not.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
So Janice, have you been keeping a list of this as well?
Yeah, I have them. I have seven conditions. So what I can do is I can put it into your C of A.
Okay. Can you want to read them back? Can you do that?
Yeah. 1, the windows on the 3rd floor need to be 1/1. 2, the signage needs to be smaller to fit the size of the band. The cloud logo shall be located between the railings. The raceway shall be the same color as the band. And the letters will be pin mounted to the raceway and halo lit, and shall go to the revisions committee. The stonework on the lower half of the building will meet comments 4 and 5 in Tom Connolly's report, meaning that they will be patched with composite and not with, I believe it was grout material that was shown on the plan. Number 4, the lighting will be uplit and not downlit. Number 5, the detail on the doors will go back to the revisions committee to show if it's going to be 1 or 2 doors fitting within the existing frame. Number 6, the top transom of the second floor windows will be glass, either opaque or clear, and that will go back to the revisions committee. And 7, the existing wooden window trim of the second and third floor windows will not be removed. Is that it?
I would just add to number 3 about the stonework. I would like to have any mock-ups for any composite material reviewed by commission members before they.
Can that go to the revisions committee?
Or go to
That is part of my comment number 4.
Oh, is it in there, comment number 4? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't we move now next door to 475 Bloomfield Avenue? And Mr. Buckley, if you could give us a description of what you intend to do on both on the 3 facades that you see in this building, the one on Bloomfield Avenue, the one on North Fullerton, and then the one that goes into the entryway of the parking lot, which is
Sure.
the rear facade.
Sure. I'm going to stick with drawing A1 in the upper left. We have the Bloomfield Avenue elevation. Basically, again, that facade is mostly stone. Again, we are going to clean, we will point, we will repair as necessary that facade. We will color match. We will stipulate to providing samples as we are in the other building for that stone. The architectural details will be cleaned, the columns, the cornices. We are removing the steel grates that are on these windows that are on the first floor in this elevation. The existing plaques in the front of the building are going to be removed, but we're going to use similar materials to match the existing plaques once we get the tenants in there. Our plan is to remove the existing doors that you see on the first floor that we used to all go into Chase Bank. We are going to leave the windows up top. We will scrape and clean the metal frames and repair, and we will reglaze the existing, if any windows are damaged or broken in that location. And the rest of it is the base granite will be also cleaned. So basically it is cleaning, repairing, restoring the portions of the building, the new windows, and we are removing the grates on the first floor on this location and repairing. And I believe that at this time we're probably changing the lighting to be upward and move it down to the cornice or the molding that's just a little below the decorative cornice. And that would be that facade. Janice, do you want me to just continue going around the building or
Yeah. Do you want, let's see.
Actually, John, can I clarify just a couple quick things on that?
Sure.
There is one note that you didn't bring up. We are replacing the door system underneath that large center window with a similar door that we are proposing for 483, the Colby door. And to your point about lighting, my enthusiasm for the uplighting kind of is unique to 483 because of that ledge. There is not a similar ledge on 475.
Okay.
There are the two ledges above the 2 ground floor windows. Those could get a fixture on each one of those and point up. But right now I'm of the position that I think that the lighting as we designed for this building works better than it did on the 483, and I'm hoping that the commission agrees. And if not, we'll come up with something different. But I don't know that we can say that we're going to do the same treatment as 483 because the ledge doesn't really exist to accomplish that.
And we can bring that back to the review committee if we do something different.
Right.
All right. Thanks, David. I'm gonna turn to North Fullerton Avenue, elevation 2, bottom left-hand corner of A1. The building turns the corner to the left, so the same materials will wrap straight down.
Is this it? That's it, right there, right?
Yes.
Yes. So again, we will do similar
Oops. Sorry.
work. One drawing too many. There we go. Okay. With
There you go.
the stonework of sort of that front facade of this portion, this is the point in which we are looking to cut in a door opening that brings you into a center section that allows us to bring handicapped people into the building and have access to the first floor. It would also give access to the second floor. And this is a new entry area that will have the same black windows, the same type of doors. In this location, there's a detail which we can go into in more detail once we get off the elevations. There's a canopy here with an address on the face of it. That is glass doors and glass panels behind that. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. It was a long day. We then venture into the section of facade that is brick. Again, that brick will also be cleaned. We are going to clean the stone details along the top, the stone that's running up and down the facade towards the back. We will be cleaning and repointing the stone base. We are removing the grates that are on the first floor windows, but we are leaving the grates that go to the basement windows. They will be scraped and painted a black again, and that area will be cleaned. We were looking to replace these windows, so, using the Anderson 400s with this pattern, which we can go into conference later and discuss the patterns on those. But we were sort of bringing the other building and this building together with the same panel system, the same mullions. So we can discuss that when the committee wants to go through that portion. Janice, if we can move just to the right, which is the rear elevation that fronts the entrance to the deck. In this case, the stone slightly turns the corner, and that will be pointed and cleaned. There is brick that is across the back, and the bottom is brick that is painted, which we discussed earlier. We are looking just to paint it again. We are again removing the bars that are on the windows on the first floor. We are looking to bars on the lower level, black, again, cleaning them, sanding them down, fixing what's necessary, and painting them. All of these windows that you see on 1, 2, and 3, meant to be double hung windows. We were doing aluminum insulated panels above the first floor windows, which again, we can have a discussion about that being glass. And that pretty much is what we're doing around the 3 facades on this building.
If I could just clarify a couple things that Mr.
Sure.
Buchholz brought up. One thing to note here is this entryway that's on North Fullerton, it serves a couple different points. One is we need to figure out, as I mentioned earlier, how to get people to the office space without going through the retail. The second, which John brought up, which is important here, is this building has absolutely no ADA entries or exits. There are steps to any way that you would get in this building currently. So from a permitting standpoint, from our ability in code to do what we need to do, we have to solve that problem with this level of renovation plan to do within the building. This was, I think, the only sensitive location we could find for that entryway that both made sense for circulation and also made sense for ADA. But that is where the location of this came from. Going back to the windows on the right and the brick. One of the things on the elevation that John's office created that you guys have in front of you, that is, I don't want to say misleading because it's exactly the way it's supposed to be, but it is a little different than what's in reality, is because of the brick, it looks as though there is a differentiation between the back building and the front. It looks like the back part of this building is somehow a different color or has a differentiation to it that is visible. When you look at an actual picture of the building on that side, the color goes all the way to the rear, and this is just a material note on the plan that makes it look different in an elevation that doesn't make it look different in a rendering. I just want to keep that point noted. One of the things John also, I don't know that I heard him bring up, is we are proposing to add canopies to those windows on the first floor, similar to the ones that exist on 483. And there's two reasons for that too. One is we wanted to tie the office components of this building together and differentiate between office and retail. And we thought that would be helpful towards that. And the second goes back to my first point, which is there isn't a dimensional differentiation between the front and the back of this building. I was in front of this commission, now it's got to be 11 years ago, 10 years ago, for a building on the corner of Bloomfield Avenue and North Willow Street called the Phoenix Building, which has a taqueria on the first floor and Arthur Murray Dance, that red brick building on the corner there. And one of the problems we were trying to solve there is creating a distinct office entry where people didn't have to say, at the time the tenant was Elevation Burger. And what we were trying to avoid was, hi, I'm a lawyer and I work above Elevation Burger. Hi, I'm an architect and my office is above Elevation Burger. And we felt as though creating that rear entry on that building and differentiating the facades in a way created the I don't want to say illusion because I don't mean it that way, but created the optics of there being an office building and a retail building. And because the brick and the stone don't differentiate themselves in color, we felt as though a dimensional differentiation helped, and tying in the awnings that are on 483 was our solution to that. So that's kind of the spirit of what we did there. In terms of the grates that are being removed from those windows, that's really a tenant-driven exercise for us. Is, you know, the back floor of those, there will be people in those windows. Those windows we hope to be more active than what they were when it was simply a bank, and those windows were, you know, to the back of a teller or something like that. These may be they may be offices of people, and people will be using them, and we're hoping that those windows become more activated. We don't think that there's a need for those grates on that facade, given the change in use from a bank, you know, retail money and things of that sort to something a little bit more traditional. We plan to keep the grates on the basement level for security and safety, so you can't walk by and just kick the glass out. But that is the intent on this building. We tried very hard not to touch what we thought was, you know, beautiful components of this building in terms of the windows, in terms of any of the decorative stonework, and we tried to limit our impact on the building to be as limited as we can. But I wanted to just you know, enunciate the fact that there are some strategic-driven things on this facade that I think help guide people in the right direction. It's part of the reason why we put a new address on that side of the building and didn't say, hey, we're going to work in the back or the rear or the upstairs of the old Chase Bank building. We saw that being the narrative if we didn't say, oh, I work at 1 North Fullerton, as opposed to I work above the old Chase. Remember the old Chase, not the new Chase, not the Chase across the street, the old Chase. I just thought that was going to be problematic. So that's just the intent of what we did here. And I thought that might help in people's comments to understand our position on that.
David, I have a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
David?
Yes.
I
Janice?
can hear you, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
my question has to do with, if the entrance, if you're trying to provide handicapped accessibility, shouldn't it be located in the back of the building where the handicap parking spaces are?
I mean, we don't have any parking spaces in the rear. I guess the public parking spaces are in the back, but
No,
that,
but
the
if-
back of the building, the way the grade of this building is, the back of that building, you'd be coming into the basement. And I don't think that that is an appropriate entryway for what we're hoping to be a premier office building. We're hoping this becomes a Class A office building to solve the problems of what I was predicting earlier, which is, I don't want to say I'm a lawyer who works above elevation burger. I think you run into similar problems if you say, well, my office is in the back on the garage facade of this building. I anticipate that being confusing for guests and visitors.
Do you have any property along that back facade, or are you right on the property line?
We're right on the property line. There's
Okay,
a
so
sidewalk.
you can't enter there anyway. Kathleen, there's something about providing handicap and accessible entry to primary entrances. You don't bring people around the back. So there's something to be said about making that
Right.
that's the right thing to do.
Well, I have a question. If you go back, Janice, why do you have the windows outlined in red on the North Fullerton side?
Right.
Because they're right there.
David, I think we changed those to,
Yeah, I think that this is, I don't know how it happened. There was a revision set that was sent, had a couple of errors.
Yeah, these are not the
Actually-
drawings. These are not the drawings I reviewed. The windows have changed.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I don't know what this one seems to be the first thing we sent in, and then we did send a clarifying one in. And the way it's most noticeable that I picked up on it on this is in the rear elevation, there are only 2 windows that have those dividers. That was not intentional, and we corrected that on a revision that we sent in.
Okay.
Those are supposed to be similar, although different sized windows. They're supposed to be similar in appearance to the rest of them,
Okay.
which would be
One over
which
one.
would be simple. So, yeah,
Okay.
1/1 double hung.
Okay.
So I think that the red bubbles is we attempted to correct that in a secondary submission.
Okay, great.
So hold it. So the bubbles show a mutton window with
606.
revision 1. Is the intent just to do 1/1 double hung along the along that?
No, the intent was to keep the mutton windows on North Fullerton. That was the intent. The reason that they are bubbled is there were just inconsistencies in each window, similar to what's happening on the rear facade on this attachment. But that being said, I am open to the mutton design similar to 483. I'm open to that mutton design changing. And if you guys want it to be 1/1, that's a fine condition for me. But it can also, we tried to provide. I don't remember where I saw it. It's not the master plan, but we try. I know that simulated divided and true divided lights are normally what I'm in front of this commission arguing about. So I tried to solve that problem before anybody brought it up. But I'm not wed to it.
Okay, I just wanted some clarification on the plan, so what we were looking at. So what we are looking at is what you've submitted on page A1, which are 1/1 for the third and second story, and then on this plan it has multiple muttons, 6/6, but they're all to be basically 1/1 double hung. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much. Why don't we start with questions from the commissioners then? David, you're up first because you're up on my list. Do you have any questions, David?
I do. I'm on a different computer, so I should be fine now. So one question is, at the very end, you talked about the muttons. What was the logic for going away from the 6/6?
Repeat that? I didn't catch what you said.
the question is you were just discussing the window configurations on the, that would be what, South Fullerton Ave.
Right.
And in the drawings that we saw, there were 6/6 buttons, and then there's the 1/1. And the question is why did you? What was I missed the part where you transitioned? Why did they go away from this?
No, we didn't. We didn't on the Fullerton facade. We left them as 6/6. It was the rear facade that had a challenge. The rear facade we went to 1/1, and if you're looking at the screen that Janice has shared, there is still 2 windows on that have the 6/6. So the rear facade is now consistently 1/1 in our application, and the Fullerton side is consistently 6/6. But again, that being said, if the commission likes the brand and type of the windows, we're open to your suggestions on the Mutton design and whether or not to keep it 1/1 or 6/6.
Janice, can you go back to the side view as opposed to the?
Sure.
Yeah.
Fullerton.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not going to make comments on this other than you just clarified for me that this is the Fullerton facade, and the intent at this time, prior to our commentary, will be to do 6/6 as shown. This is the current
That's correct.
proposal. Okay. And
Yes.
you're going to do these balloons. You mentioned these balloon-shaped awnings to break the side of the building. I have a question on the front face of the building. If you could go to the elevation on Bloomfield Avenue.
Yep.
So I have a question. The windows as they are now, the two, one on the left and to the right of the tripartite fascia here, those actually have like panels. Like those windows could actually fill the entire void. In fact, they could even go to the ground. They could be, right from the sidewalk up or have a small bulkhead. And I'm wondering, is there any reason why you couldn't do that? Especially if the intention is for it to be retail.
Well, we're not proposing to change those windows at this time, mostly because the tenant for the retail doesn't exist yet. So I'm open to exactly what you said, but it's not work that we're not working on the interiors of those spaces, and I'd prefer not to make design changes yet for a tenant that I don't have clarity on or don't have vision on. But it's a good comment, and we would certainly do it. We'd certainly come back with something like that once we have clarity on what that tenancy is.
Okay, so that would be something to put in our discussion to for future reference. We would like to see that. Ideally, that would be something I'd bring up.
Yeah, we're happy to see that also, David.
Yeah. And the lighting you talked about, just to clarify, you had thought that maybe above the cornice, above the console, you would have uplights above the console. Because there's that very void negative space above the console bracket, above the window. And you were saying that you would uplight that going up. Is that right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it wasn't proposed in this application. I'm happy to do it, but I don't know that it solves the same problem. I don't know that it creates the same a level of illumination and beauty that we're hoping to achieve. I think it's a compromise because the decorative details don't exist underneath this cornice in the same way that you pointed out on 483, which was a great comment, and I'm glad to incorporate it. I'm still fairly enthusiastic about lighting this building the way we proposed it, but I would add lighting to the top of that to go up. I don't know that it needs it, but I would like to see the lighting come down and really wash the walls of this building. It's flat. It's got a sheen to it in certain places, and I think it would really look beautiful coming down from that cornice.
Well, this is what I was raising before. The same issue is if you're going to be doing the downlighting, you have that those modillions or those console brackets or dental work below the very prominent cornice there. And my concern was, again, the same as the other building, is I don't want the lighting to disrupt the solid void relationship of that cornice. So my only concern is, and this will be in the discussion, but as a question is, how do you address that? How do you anticipate addressing that? Fixing the lighting.
David, can I,
Go ahead.
well, I'll wait for my questions. Go
Well,
ahead.
go ahead.
They presented
Yeah,
something here. This is what they presented, and you're giving another opinion, which is great. And maybe when we get into the discussion phase, they can further elaborate on that.
Okay. Very good. I guess that answers my questions right now.
Thank you. Mr. Reimnitz?
Okay, to keep on with the lighting, there is a horizontal line below the dental work. Looks like it's a couple feet down. That there must be like a 2 or 3 inch ledge there.
Mhm.
It seems like to me that's a perfect, can we, here, I'll put it in the terms of a question. Can we put lighting there, uplighting the dental work? And then I would,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm looking at and I can't share it with the commission, and I apologize for that, but I'm looking at a very close-up image of this facade on my computer simultaneous to our conversation. It's very shallow. I don't know that a fixture fits in it. If we can source something that's more like a, LED strip that doesn't have a housing, I think we'd have more success in fitting it there. But I don't see a traditional light fixture fitting on that small ledge. I'm just looking at a current picture of the building, and it is really shallow. It's essentially like a piece of trim. It's not, it really is like 2 or 3 inches as you described it. And
Right.
with conduit, with any conduit runs or a housing on the fixture, I think it will become proud of that ledge.
David, Janice put up the rendering, which helps.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I never saw that.
Well, I would suggest or question on your drawing A2, you show of these fixtures. How big? There's no dimension on them. They look like they're just in a track, small track.
No, well, the small track has a cover on it so that you don't see the diodes.
Yeah.
So what it does is diffuses the lights, and they have ribs in them which project the light. So these are typically from 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches, depending on the throw. So these are not large razors.
Okay, so you could do it. You could sit on that ledge.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna. That's just a question. I have some other questions. Right there. You were just at
Which one?
The canopy with 1 Fullerton address on it, right there. I thought the maximum size of canopy lettering was 6 inches for this kind
You're
of lettering.
correct. You're correct, John. I was going to raise that issue.
Right.
This would require a variance.
Okay. I have a question about this side facade, the overall facade, and the stone versus brick. Starting with the stone in general, you said you're cleaning the stone. When I went to the site and I looked carefully at the stone, and it looked like where it turned the corner at Bloomfield, someone has done some cleaning there, and the stone is actually almost white. It looks to me like all the other stone is just dirty. So is the intention to really clean the stone on the limestone facade, and then along the dental work and down the coin stone, where the stone is laid up like coins to the right? Are you going to really clean it down to the stone, or just cleaning?
John, I'm looking at a recent, within the last few months, image of this building, and I'm seeing what you're seeing. I'm not responsible for that work. I didn't do it. I can't speak to, no, I'm just saying I can't speak to what was used or what was done. In the image that I'm actually looking at, it actually looks as though these might be limestone replacements that might have happened at a different time. I mean, they are candidly distinctly different. But I don't know how it was achieved. So I think that similar to 483, we would go about doing some mock-ups, and I would use that section as the basis for where we do mock-ups to make sure that we have a consistent finish.
Sure. I'm just going to suggest.
I didn't do it, so I can't tell you how it was done.
That's okay. I'm going to suggest to you, at that corner was a plaque above and you can see that where the plaque was, you can see the original stone color.
Oh, right. Good point.
So the stone is really that color. So that's my question. Are you really cleaning the stuff? Are you going to get clean stone?
That's the goal. Yes, that is the goal.
Okay. And you would do the same treatment on this, going down along North Fullerton. There's some stone work that flanks brickwork down on the right.
Yeah, there's like a pier, right? There's like a pier between the two. We would do that too as well.
It's a coin. Okay. And the dental work above. And then what? The brick would remain painted?
Well, the brick on the Fullerton side, as far as we can tell, the brick on the Fullerton side is actually not painted. That is the color of the brick.
Oh, great.
The brick on the rear facade is painted to match the existing color of the brick.
Okay. Yeah. Next question. On the rear facade, I see a note at the bottom about painting the bottom masonry to match
Color stone.
And what does that mean? What stone? The taupe multicolored polished stone base, or what do you?
Well, so if you're looking at the rear facade and you see that there are, four window elevations, and you look at the graded elevation on the bottom, that is currently like a smooth concrete finish. It's not brick like the upper three levels. It is currently painted to match the brick. Our intent was to leave it that way, was to not differentiate between that base and the brick the way it has not been differentiated for some number of years. But there is a differentiation between those materials. Mr. Buchholz's elevation is accurate when looking at this image. It is just like a smooth skim coat on the bottom. It's not.
It says paint masonry, same color as stone. So what I'm trying to understand, same color as what stone?
David, I think
the limestone that is adjacent, which is what it is now. It's basically to leave it the way it is now, to paint
leave it the way
brick and the
Okay, leave it the way it is now, because adjacent is the polished gray stone to the left. But okay, you're gonna leave it the way.
We're not painting it gray. We're not painting it gray.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me. And then there's also along this, it looks like this has been stuccoed over, this little base, masonry base. I can't really tell what it is, but there's a lot of, again, spalling and cracking and so on. I'm assuming you're going to resurface it and make it look beautiful.
We are.
Okay. I have, the only other question I have is about, the entry into your, closer to north to Bloomfield Avenue, the new entry you're cutting in to the existing stone facade, or you're enlarging actually an existing opening. Did you think, and this is an entry that directs people to the third part of your, three different elements, is the brick building to the right. If we said.
Correct.
That's right. The core lives right inside that door. The elevator stair core does, and then everybody will move to the right, which is more of the office component of this building.
Got it. Did you consider instead of putting the opening here, take out the first bay windows in the brick portion of the facade? And do like a single larger door, again, with flanking, because you won't be able to get two double doors in there, I don't think. And then have the entry actually be part of that building? Part of that,
We did.
say, whatever, that,
The building is double height where we come in at this elevation, so it allows us some flexibility on creating the stair core and creating the elevator that we're doing.
Oh, I
Moving it
see.
over to the right
I see.
interrupts the structure of those 3 floors in a different way,
I
and
see.
would be expensive and problematic for us to solve it there. But where it comes in now is an existing, triple height cavity that we can
Got it.
construct that core out.
Okay, got it, okay. I have no other questions at the moment.
Mr. Rooney.
Is the intention of having the 6/6 windows throughout to match the kind of the complicated window patterns on the main building, the retail building?
I wish I was smart enough to have thought of that. I don't know that that was actually the intent. No, I mean, I'm just being honest with the commission. The intent here was to not get rejected on a 1/1 and to try to solve that problem early on in the conversation rather than later.
Right.
So I take the commission's advice on how they want to see these windows seriously. And whatever anybody's comments are, we'll try to incorporate them. But no, it was not specifically to match the larger leaded glazed windows.
Sure. Okay, that's my question.
Ms. Kane-Levy? Caroline?
Yes, hi. I just have one question. The monumental windows in the main portion of the banking hall, they are amber glass, and you said that you're reglazing them. Are you just repairing them and keeping the amber colored glass, or do you have an intent?
Yeah, I think I'm looking at John's note in this right now. I'm also looking at, again, my close-up version of this on this building. There's nothing that's broken right now. We're only reglazing in the event that there's an issue with these windows. The intent is to maintain them, to keep them, to restore the structure of them. Anything that we did would be historic to the window. We would not have any differentiating panels within there. And so if we have to break, if one were to be broken or one needed to be repaired, it would be done in like kind to what's there now.
Okay, great. I guess that's my only question.
Okay, thank you. Jason, Mr. Hyman, do you have any?
No questions.
Okay, I have a question. On the front facade, the front door, there's 3 handrails that exist now that are painted gold. They don't look like they're original. What do you intend to do with those? Do you intend to keep them?
No, we intended to remove those.
You intend to remove those. Okay, and then for the lighting, which wraps, did you intend to have the downlighting wrap around to the North Fullerton side as well and the back of the building, or just on the Bloomfield Avenue facade? Oh, I see.
Bloomfield and North Fullerton, but
All the way
not the
around.
rear.
But not the rear?
Not the rear, just the
Actually, the
Bloomfield
parking
and
lot.
the North Fullerton.
Okay. So if the suggestion that was made before, if the lighting were to go onto that small ledge, which I think you said there isn't enough room, but you were going to investigate it, there isn't a ledge. There's no ledge on the back of the addition in the back.
No.
So you would have 2 levels of lighting. Is that something that you would be comfortable with in terms of your design?
It looks nice when it's all in one level.
Okay.
Yeah, again, on 483, I really appreciate the comments and suggestions. On this one, I tend to feel as though where we placed the lighting is the right place for it. Not as an architect necessarily. I'm not trying to be a historic preservationist. I think just from the overall appeal of the building and guiding people in, it seems like the right treatment to me. I would have an issue with not lighting the brick part of the building at all. If you told me that it could be 2 different levels, that's less of an issue to me, but I don't think the back part of the brick can just be dark, because it does have a you know, a use and a specific use, and we want to make sure that we eliminate it. And being that there are no other levels than the top, I would like to see it, you know, applied there. Which, if it means doing that all the way around, that's my idea. If it means changing the light levels on the front, you know, limestone portion of the building, I'm open to that. But I would like to see it maintained in the cornice detail on the brick part of the building.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a question about the awnings, which maybe is directed, I'm trying to find where our awnings in our guidelines are about those awnings.
On page 77.
77. So is this type of, I mean, the one on the building, the smaller building, they're existing. You're proposing to add new awnings.
So if you look under number 17, where it says select awnings of traditional designs, it does say arched awnings are appropriate for arched openings.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to check, because in reality, if you have that transom on the top, which we haven't discussed whether it's going to be clear glass or a black glass, you know, in reality, it doesn't serve any purpose other than perhaps decorative. And it's a total, you know, change from what you're proposing over the new door. So I just wanted to see whether or not that was appropriate in the in this district. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Okay. So Tom, is any other questions? Is everyone commented?
I have another question.
Yes.
Okay, and this is directed maybe to Steve. Did the photos you have show the ironwork in front of these windows? Can you see the bank building?
The original photos only have Bloomfield.
Yeah.
And the ironwork is on the front.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Go to the full length.
Okay.
I have no pictures of Fullerton.
Got it.
Is your point, John, that they're original to the building and that they should stay?
Well, that's going to be a comment, which is yes.
Okay.
Especially if you don't know who your tenant is going to be. I don't know if they certainly wouldn't take away that. If you go to this building and you walk around it, that ironwork adds a lot of detail.
Yes.
The little detail on the top of the ironwork is really nice. How it's brought, you know, I realize maybe, you know, from the inside, the argument could be made. You don't want to feel like you're, you know, behind this jail, you know, ironwork. But I think it adds a lot to the character.
Did we have any photographs of that ironwork that could be shared?
I don't.
Jen, was there photographs of the ironwork in
It's a picture.
I don't have the picture.
No. And this isn't a question, it's a statement, but the ironwork that's on the 2 windows on that Bloomfield facade and the window on the
big window on the other side.
Yeah, on the other side seemed to be original because you could definitely say there were bars on the part in the back where the brick is. It's not decorative ironwork. They're bars.
Right. Now this ironwork was added when they did the additions to both sides of the bank.
Right. But that was in the 1920s, correct?
Probably in the 20s, yeah.
Right.
Because these pictures are coming from 35.
Yes.
So.
Okay, that's a good point. Can we have to move along with our discussion so we can start testimony for the next application by 10:30. So can we start with Mr. Green? Well, wait, before we do that, Tom, on your comments, are there any additional comments that that you've made that refers specifically to this building?
No, I think we've touched upon everything. Similar to what we discussed about the other building was basically the masonry, as long as that was done sensitively, and there were mock-up process involved in any of the repointing. I did, my first comment was about the steel window guards. I felt that they were character defining of this building and the type of building that it is. So I think they should remain and not be removed. Yeah, everything else we've somewhat discussed with regards to signage and lighting. That's pretty much everything.
Okay, thank you. And just for signage for this building, you haven't come in with a signage plan except for the entryway on North Fullerton, correct?
That's correct. This isn't planned to be a single tenant building the same way 483 is. So we're not proposing tenant specific signage related to the office component of this building.
Right.
I can't tell you that we wouldn't come back for a retail sign at the time that a retailer is identified, but we don't know what that would look like or where that would be. So that would be a separate application.
Okay.
So yes, the only signage that we're proposing is the signage on the
North Fullerton side.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So why don't we start with our discussion, Mr. Greenbaum?
So I raised the issue about in the future, I'd like to see, if we can memorialize it now, that would be great, to say that I'd like to see the windows on either side of the main facade open to the maximum size possible, while retaining, obviously some kind of.
But they're not asking for that to be changed.
No, I know that. I'm saying, though, that would be something that we would like to see going forward to eliminate what's currently paneled. The bank's needs.
They would have to come back for that.
They have to come, yeah, the original photos from 35 show what's there now.
Well, there's always a chance to make.
Let's talk about what they're.
We'll talk about that when we need to.
Okay.
Right.
The other thing is, I'm going to actually, since I know we've kind of talked about the previous building. Is that already memorialized and done? Because I had a thought and I wanted to raise it before we close this application. And that is the windows on the third floor on the Beaux-Arts building. Those could also be split vertically as opposed to 1/1 double hung windows. A traditional Beaux-Arts building that would be consistent on all stories, second and third in France, like in a mansard roof. Also have
Right. The original, the 1935 picture shows 1/1.
No, I get
That's
it. That's fine, but it could be.
We're not redesigning it.
Right. And
Anyway.
okay. Anything else, David, about this building?
The only other thing I'd like to say is on the Fullerton facade, if you can bring that over with the new entrance. Show us the new entry in terms of.
The block.
Next page.
This is as it is. The next,
I gotta go up. Wait a minute. I'm sorry.
I think it's A1.
Yeah, gotta go back up.
Here we go.
Can you see anything?
No, Janice, there's nothing
Not
on the
yet.
screen.
There's nothing on my screen either. It's kind of, I think my computer's slipping out here.
tell me about it. There it is.
You got something? I have gray on my screen.
No.
I have gray. Yeah, right, there we go.
You're back.
Yeah, I got page 2. For some reason I can't show page 1.
Can you?
You want to
What is?
I want to make sure that the alignment. I want to make sure that there's a clear alignment of the horizontal planes of the suspended canopy with the
Right, there you go.
there it goes. I want to make sure that that in some way or another is aligned with the window mullions on the right and on the left. I just want to make sure. Can you comment on that? Did you consider that in terms of the
No,
height?
well, David, they match the height and the bottom of the windows to the right. It's too hard to make them all line up, but they do in fact line horizontally to all the windows to the right of the building. The head and the center section do match.
But isn't that the existing opening now where the windows are? You're not making it any larger.
No, we are.
No.
There is a smaller window. There is a window that's to the basement that's this wide. And then there's another window that sits a little bit higher where the windows are above the doors. I'm afraid to ask Janice to move to the existing elevation.
I'll try and see if it's.
Oh, so you're you're not making it any higher, you're making it wider.
We're pretty much making it wider, correct?
Right, okay.
Again, my concern is that there is a very clear respect and honoring of the horizontal plane of the window mullion on the Bloomfield Avenue side, and also the top of, I guess there's going to be some kind of reveal on that opening. It looks where you have the surround of the door, like the molding around. There's a raised molding.
Yes, it's steel. Yes.
The outside is steel. So all I'm saying is that steel, I just want to make sure that you were considerate to the alignment of the top of that with the top of the awnings and just want to make sure that was
David,
all thought through.
Yeah, David, I'm looking again at this existing image on my screen. The existing window that's there is perfectly aligned with the limestone. It doesn't cut the limestone in any way. It fits right underneath a full limestone, which happens to, and I'm sure sensitively done historically, happens to align with the windows to the right. So we're not going to go up anymore so that we don't interfere. We don't end up with cutting the limestone in half and having this weird opening. We're going to maintain that height and widen it and bring it down, which would keep it in line with the existing windows to the north.
Right, the horizontal.
Yeah, I don't want it to be thought, I just want to make sure it was thought of kind of en suite and that it was considered.
No, David, it was very specifically done that way. So what you're asking for is in fact what was designed. Yes.
Good. All right.
Well, it just goes along with the opening that currently exists, that you're not making it any higher, you're just making it wider, correct?
It's also
Correct. We're also matching the height of the bottom of the mullions to the same as the windows. So it's respecting the vernacular to the right.
And
Correct.
also the canopy also should be following that alignment, and it seems that you have done so.
It centers on that mullion, yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Reimnitz? John?
Yes, I'm here, sorry. I was muted. I have a whole different opinion about this entrance here. According to our guidelines, we're not supposed to be adding new features to buildings where none exist. I understand that the nature of this is to create a new entrance to the third office or whatever use. But I would instead say, instead of making this out of steel, and there's some detailing there because, which I'm not sure is clear, because the base projects the glazed, the polished stone base at the bottom sits out 2 inches from the stone above. So there's some detailing there in any event, but I think it should be more, I think the surround of this entry door should align with the tops of the windows in the front, and that they would have the same sort of stone cornice treatment as the front. So if you go to the front of the building, you look at the two flanking Yeah, that you're doing that instead, the two on either side.
Yeah, I absolutely disagree with that, John.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's actually creating a false sense of history if we do that. What we're doing here is modifying an existing opening, all right, to make it, turning a window into a door. We're not, which is absolutely acceptable, to make a building accessible. And this is not unlike what we approved for the building at the Hampton House right across the street, where I believe we did the same thing. We took a window and
the same thing. We did across the street in the Hampton House. The proportions and the materials are similar to what's there. The entry here is steel and steel canopy and elements that don't exist anywhere else in this building.
That's true, but it shows that it was an alteration. We don't want to mimic something, but to modify an opening that currently exists. But
Well,
me.
if that's the case, I'll just comment, and whether people agree with me or not, I would put the entry in the brick facade, and I understand the idea of the space as you come in, but you could come in there and hang a left right into the three-story space and be in that space and not be cutting through the stone of the existing, of that, cutting in, enlarging the stone there. So I'm not sure I understand why you can't put the entry there. I understood this thing about this three-story space, but you can cross over to that three-story space inside, I believe. And as far as the lighting's concerned, my comment about that is I would still do the uplighting on the little piece of trim that I suggested. I would bring it around the corner on the stone building and stop. I don't think to light up that painted, light up the brick and beyond is, I think the cornice and the details above are what makes this special, this building special. And in fact, our guidelines sort of suggest that we should celebrate cornices and so on. And let's see, what else do I have? Yeah, so those are the two big things. My comments.
Caroline.
Okay. I'm okay with the door location as it, well, before I start saying anything else, I just want to congratulate you and thank you for adaptively reusing these buildings. I was very concerned when Chase moved out. I thought we would have white elephants sitting on the corner here, and I thought it would be years before anything happened, and I'm really thrilled that this is going to be happening. And I think that what you're doing with them is really a fantastic program.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And a vertical enlargement either. I think they really stand alone as they are, and this will be a fantastic addition to Bloomfield Avenue.
Thank you.
And then I just want to say the doorway, as you're proposing it for the barrier-free access or the accessible entrance, is in my eyes acceptable. I think it's simple, plain stone, the limestone and the granite, and by lowering the sill of the window there. Canopy is going to be fine, and a nice sign for the main entrance to this portion of the building. I do think that the signage should be reduced a little bit.
It would actually, you can't be approved the way it's shown because it doesn't meet our
And if I misread the signing ordinance, I tried to come in, the intent was to come in with conforming signage. I must have misread something in the ordinance, and we're happy to limit it to what's conforming.
It'd be 6 inches, yeah.
Yep, we're okay with that.
Okay, great. With regard to the windows and the configuration of the windows on the North Fullerton facade, again, I would try to look for some kind of evidence as to what the original design was. And I'm looking at the report from 2010 when the windows were and it seems like windows that were being replaced, the steel windows that were being replaced were 1/1 at the time. So if that's an indication that that was the original, it's hard to hear. You know, you can stop moving the drawings around. But I think that's important. I don't want to do some kind of conjectural window replacement if we don't have any evidence that it was multi-light. But if you do with evidence, we support the change. And then in terms of the lighting, I do think that those dentils at the cornice might be affected. And I'm wondering if we could suggest that the revisions committee takes a look at a mock-up of what it might look like and how it does affect those smaller dentils at the cornice to put a light fixture there. If there's some very tiny LED strip that could be done, I think that's probably the way to go, but I would like to actually see some kind of a mock-up situation. And also, I think it's important, Commissioner Reimnitz mentioned, you know, a very important part of the building is the pediment and what's the parapet above. So if there's a way to illuminate that, I think that would be great as well. You're missing a part of the building that's special.
I agree with that.
Janice, can you do something? Something is blocking the image right now.
Oh, that's, yes. Can you see it now?
There we go. Better.
Mr. Hyman, do you have any comments, discussion?
No, I don't have any comments.
Okay. Has everyone just given their opinion?
I just want to add one comment about the surround around the door on the North Fullerton side. I understand that that's going to be steel. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes.
Buckle?
Yes, it is. It's going to be black steel that runs around.
What about, how would you feel about making the steel the color of the facade of the building so that it doesn't draw as much attention and have, you know, the inner part being the black? Just like
Well, one of the things we were also trying to do is differentiate it from that part of the building so that it's the entrance to the building to the right a little bit. So the thought was it stands.
I'm concerned with I think it has to stand out. The way that, you know, what you're trying to limit, David, is pretty important to me from a tenancy perspective to make sure that we're driving people in the right direction. And I think that we wanted it to be, you know, we didn't want to take up any of the beautiful facade, but we wanted to make sure that people understood where they were going.
I'll let my colleagues comment on that. I understand your need, and it's certainly a reasonable need. Then the question is, you know, going back to what John said about the idea, I thought, you know, just having the frame on the outside not stand out as much. And can we go back to that facade? Could you scroll down? I think it's below. If you could scroll down, Janice.
Yep.
And this is, yeah. So I just want everyone to visualize, like, okay, so you have in this drawing, you don't see it shown here as translucent, but if that's black, that's going to be really, 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 really prominent on that facade. And while I don't mind the inner frame and even perhaps the suspended, you know,
David, the canopy and the frames are all black, yes. And the struts for the canopy will all be black. So it's like a one unit in unity.
well, I'm just putting it out there. I'll let my colleagues comment on it. I feel that the surround, the surface that is flush with the face of the building, that rests on the building, not any of the appendages. Ideally, my gut feeling says, if that matches the building, it will be more harmonizing. And yet, by having the contrast, just like the window frame mullions are contrasted, it's more consistent with that. I'd ask my colleagues to give their opinion on that.
Well, may I just interject? Is this something that, because I don't think this was really fleshed out on A4. You gave us a picture of a similar one. I don't think it's been fleshed out anywhere on anything we've seen. So is this something that you could do more of a mock-up of and hand it back to the revisions committee with the color as well?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we've already established if the location stays, but we've already established that the height will remain the same and that the width will just be will be wider. And I also noticed something on your plan, I don't know, somewhere on that drawing. It looks as though you don't quite have the proportion of the door with lined up with the canopy. It looks as though the door and the part above the canopy are almost the same in terms of percentage. Seems like 50-50, and I think that's something that would have to be looked at more closely.
I'm not sure what the 50-50 was, just in terms
Can you go
of
back to the page?
page one,
Not this one. Go to the one where you actually show that.
the blow up.
It's on page A1.
A1's not showing on my computer for some reason.
Is it the bottom, Janice, of this?
I can show this. I can show A2.
Yeah, that's good. Right there. You see how the door is very squat? And then on the top, you've got this huge transom. The proportions don't work.
But Chairperson, we just spent some time talking about how those mullion lines match up with the windows all to the right. And David had.
I'm sorry. I was thinking that he was speaking about the at the top.
Well, the top end.
Right. Well, what is the height of that door, the actual physical door? Do you have a dimension on it?
7 foot.
I mean, maybe just because of the monumentality of the building, maybe if you made the doors taller so that they lined up with the first horizontal button as opposed to the bottom of the window frame.
That would be pretty tall.
Or too tall? Okay. All right.
I think they've tried to line things up with the bottom of the window to the right.
Right.
And to the center of the double hung.
I agree.
And to the top of the double hung. I don't have a problem with that.
But how do you feel?
I do agree with David about this black steel element. I think no matter how you build this thing, it's going to be an intervention. It's going to be obvious that it's new, whether it's black steel or it's another material, and I would tend to make it out of the same limestone and then have a canopy coming off of it, and then doing the infill with the black clad elements. But there you go.
But the black steel, my issue is the black steel, you're really you're introducing a different type of aesthetic language into the building, and it's very, very prominent. And even though I know what you're trying to achieve, David, and you know I'm sensitive and appreciative of that, I do think that you probably would be well served, even if you did use steel. And I'll let my colleagues comment about whether that's appropriate or not. But I do think that should not contrast with the building. It should be a reveal that brings the facade of the building.
So if we're in agreement with the location of this added door, then why don't we, the suggestion I made before, which is that the revisions committee look at the surround and what the surround is made of.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Okay, so are there any other comments? And so just to be clear, all the windows on this whole facade, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and then all the ones on the back are to be replaced with
1/1.
1/1, right.
The only other thing I'd say is the original building, does anyone have a picture? Was this 6/6 on the upper floors of the Fullerton Avenue side originally?
I think when
have
you,
original pictures there.
no, I think when you look at this building, the 1/1 with that type of brickwork, it almost has a prairie style to it. When you start to get the 6/6, I think it gets very, with the brickwork is beige. It's prairie as opposed to, Queen Anne with the tiny mullions. I vote for 1/1 for all of them.
Here's my point. Okay, this is where the issue of preservation, for the sake of preservation versus beauty for the sake of beauty, where I have a challenge. I like the 6/6 here. Okay, if that wasn't original, I think it makes the building much richer and much more important.
Well, I disagree. So maybe we should have.
I'm trying to extrapolate though. So the same issue goes with the facade on the other building where this third floor, visually, I think, and historically accurately, the French door type configuration would be most suitable for the third floor. Again, and I agree and acknowledge it's not the original, but I think it would be stunning. It'd be very sophisticated. And in both cases, I think these are enhancements, but architecturally are appropriate. They're commensurable with the architecture of as it is. So I think it's important that everybody comment on that and
I disagree with you. How's that?
Okay, Caroline, what is your comment?
I disagree with David. I think-
Okay, Jason?
Yeah, I disagree.
So you want to go 1/1 on
And
this?
Steve, excuse me, David. Steve?
I disagree. The only comment that I had made on the Fullerton side was that did he have in mind that he wanted to imitate the addition to the bank on the front, the monumental window to the
Right.
left. And he hadn't thought about that, but
Right.
that
And
would
I
be
don't
the
think.
only reason. I would think.
Okay, so the consensus is that all these windows will be replaced on this facade and the back, and with 1/1 configuration.
Is that what you thought 5 minutes ago?
That's what I said. That's what I said.
What he said,
We all agree with that, Dave, except you.
No. Okay. For some reason, I'm looking at the picture, and in my mind, I thought that was accepted. I'm talking about
Okay, so we've discussed the windows, the lighting. The lighting, I know that I think John.
Can I make a suggestion with the lighting? I don't have so much a problem with the lighting glancing down the building. Can we do uplighting? Can we do two-way lighting so we actually see the dental work and see the carving of the pediment? There's some interesting work inside that pediment that no one sees. But if it's lit up, it'd be great.
Short answer to your question is yes, John, we can do that.
Okay.
But can that uplighting be done on the brick part as well?
I would not.
No.
I
So
would
the
just have downloading on the brick part,
okay, so it would be uplighting on the
The
limestone
stones,
part
the limestone.
and
Yeah,
downlighting on the
great.
brick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
And I do like the recess lighting, in the window, the
Yes.
large windows. I think that's really nice. It gives some depth to the facade.
Okay, so we've discussed lighting, we've discussed the location, the new doorway, which would be the location. The surround will come back to the revisions committee. And
The size of the sign needs to be reduced to 6 inches.
right, and the lettering on the canopy.
It's 6 inch.
To 6 inches.
Right.
Okay.
And
So
then-
we have,
and And the ironwork.
Oh, yes, and the ironwork is too, that's very important. The ironwork,
Guys, if I can just speak on the ironwork for a minute before we get too far on that point. To Ms. Levy's point, and I appreciate your comments, Ms. Levy, about preserving this building and trying to do something sensitive to the building. There is a challenge that exists when looking at bank buildings. It's similar to looking at church buildings. I found that architects and designers and people who are really aesthetically sensitive, find all of the beauty in these buildings, but sometimes forget that they were very purpose-built for what they were. And one of the challenges in finding tenants in these buildings is convincing people that they're not working in a bank or living in a church or coming into something that wasn't thought of and thoughtful for them. I have a lot of challenges over the course of my career in convincing people that offices with ironwork on the outside, whether it be just bars or more decorative ironwork, albeit this is one of the more decorative ironwork jobs that I've done. I really do think that would be a challenge to find a retailer that doesn't ask me to remove that ironwork on the front. And on the Fullerton side, I know that our office tenants there will have issues with that. I'm sensitive to the fact that they exist and that they are beautiful, but I don't know that I can live within the condition of leaving them in perpetuity. I'm happy to remove them from this application on the front if that satisfies everybody and come in with a more cohesive application once we have a retailer. But I don't know that I can live with that condition of just never removing those bars.
well, I think if you want to remove them, it would be you'd have to come back before the commission. So
putting it in as something that we're going to do in like perpetuity and saying they will not do this is a little bit of a challenge. I will withdraw the front ones from the application if they're not noted, so that if I'm not the owner of this building or if anything moves forward, that someone has a fresh palette on that, because someone's going to have to come in and get signage approved or get something on that facade will likely change if there's a retailer. And I want to preserve their flexibility to re-present to you a cohesive message for whatever that tenant is.
Just to be clear, that it would be beyond this board's or this commission's power to put that condition. So it would only apply to this application if that condition was imposed.
And to make it clear, when I spoke before, I said there's a clear difference between the bars that are on the brick addition, which truly look like bars on the first floor, not the basement, but the first floor, and the ironwork that's on on those three windows, which I think is quite spectacular. And I wouldn't want to see that go.
But
bars on the windows on the first floor.
If I can interject, the architect, if he had not designed this for a bank, I can guarantee you those bars would not be there. They would not have been placed on the architect of this building.
Yeah, that's really the point for us, is we want to be historically sensitive, but we don't want to maintain, it's hard enough to turn banks into other uses. This is a challenge for us on that front part. I think it's important to the eventual use of the building to replicate. And by the way, I believe, I don't want to say authoritatively, I believe that the same thing existed up the street at 491, and those have been removed. I mean, it makes it feel more like a building.
David, did you offer to keep the bars on the windows on the front of the building for now, and then readdress that when you come back?
I will. I will remove them from this application. I just don't want it to be noted in the application that it was like rejected in some way, so that someone doesn't feel like, so that we can get a fresh look at it when we have a cohesive look. I will not remove them as part of this. I'm just hoping we can memorialize that in a way that isn't they were voted down. I mean, you guys brought up some of the other.
So just say for now, David, just say for now that you're going to leave so we won't have any comment on it. You're going to leave the ironwork on the front two windows and the big side window, period.
I will commit to that. Yeah.
We will not comment, we don't have to comment on anything else at this point in time.
Great. Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. So Janice, could you read back? I think we have 5.
Yeah, I have 4.
All
So we
right.
have condition 1, all the windows on the North Fullerton side and the rear will be 1/1. 2, the lighting plan will be revised to include uplighting for the to illuminate the top of the building. This will exclude the brick portion of the building, and the downlighting will remain. 3, the applicant will revise the size of the letters on the awning to 6 inches.
Or less.
Or what?
Or less.
Or less. Okay. And 4, the ironwork on the front of on the front 2 windows and the large side windows will remain. Now.
There's the surround on the new opening that has to come back to the revisions committee. The materials.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and while we're here, we never really addressed on the arched windows that are on the first floor on the North Fullerton side. There is a transom there now. Will that be clear glass, or will that be right there, which you won't see?
That will stay as an aluminum panel the way it is now.
Are you going to keep it? Okay. It's painted though, isn't it?
It's a painted panel. I actually don't know if it's aluminum. I apologize. I don't know if it's aluminum. It could be another material, but it is not glass now, and we would maintain it in its current form. It would be covered by those awnings, and it would stay that way.
Okay, and then the color of the windows. What will the color of the windows be? That's one thing. Oh, I guess will they be dark like they are now?
They will be black.
They will be black. Yes.
So that transom should relate to what the frames are.
Should be black.
Correct. And they will be black.
Okay. Good.
Okay, then. Jason, go ahead, Jen.
Add something to that, that the windows on Fullerton should be 1/1 unless other documentation is uncovered that.
Oh, that's a good point.
Else.
Okay, so Jason, now we have all these conditions for the C of A. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so will we move forward with this now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we vote on this now or
Yeah, someone has to make a motion.
Yeah.
I think we've
Motion
gone
to
through the
approve
conditions on both.
with the stipulations.
With the conditions stated.
Right.
Yeah.
Second.
okay, second,
I second.
Wait, who made the motion?
Steve.
I did Steve.
Okay. And who seconded?
Jason.
John
Jason.
Ryman
Oh, John.
or Jason. It's okay.
All right.
Only with a J.
All right, I'm going to do a roll call. Mr. Hyman,
Aye.
Mr. Rooney,
Aye.
Mr. Greenbaum,
Aye.
Mrs. Kane Levy,
Aye.
Mr. Reimnitz,
Aye.
and Chair Bennett.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
So we
guys.
have-
I appreciate this.
Okay, thank you. This is going to be a great addition.
Yes.
That's great.
Thank you.
So Chair
I hope you
Bennett.
guys are pleased with our work on the vestry. That was an important one that we came in front of you guys for, and I hope it turned out as well as you thought it would in your meeting.
Yeah, the building
Yes.
looks great.
Yeah.
Building looks
So,
great.
Thank you.
so Chair Bennett, we have another application tonight that we really have to hear because the public hearing is scheduled for Monday night before the planning board.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Let's go.
Are you serious? Why is
All
that?
right.
That's just bad.
Hold on just a second.
I will be recusing myself from this portion of the meeting.
Right, we have Barton Ross here, I believe. Barton, are you still here?
Where'd he go?
Yeah, I'm still here.
No, he's not on.
No, he's still here. I see Barton's here.
There he is.
There it is.
Okay, hold on.
Chair Bennett, may I interject? Per the bylaws, testimony is not permitted to begin after 10:30. So I propose making a motion to waive that provision with the condition that we limit the presentation to 10 minutes and questions from the commissioners to 3 minutes per commissioner.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Minutes.
Okay, so everybody, we have 3 minutes.
So that's the motion that I propose.
Oh,
Is there a second?
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Jason. So I'll try to be quick. This is application 2675, 423 Bloomfield Avenue Property LLC at 423 Bloomfield Avenue. It is a major site plan, and we are reviewing this for recommendations to be sent to the zoning board. And the subject, the planning board, sorry, contains a 2-story mixed-use building located on the north side of Bloomfield Avenue. The rear of the property faces Glenridge Avenue, includes a door that provides access to the basement. The historic significance, this project sits within the Central Business District, and both facades, the rear and the front, are visible from the sidewalk, public right-of-way within a historic district. We do have Mr. Conley, as he said before, had to recuse himself. Mr. Barton Ross has prepared comments that everybody should have received and read prior to this. So with that, hi, Paul, could you just walk us through, I know we don't want to give you short shift, but as quickly as possible, what you propose to do.
Sure. As we heard, this is an application to build a new 2-story addition at the rear of the building. The addition will be a 3-bedroom residence for the owner of the building, Scott Kennedy, who's currently on the call. Scott and his wife, Pilar, are the owner.
Paul is.
I muted him by mistake.
Okay.
Paul, go ahead.
Okay. So Scott and Pilar Kennedy are the owners of the property, and they're also owners of the business on the first floor, which is Studio 042. There's an apartment at the front of the building that will remain as it is. As you know, the property is located on the north side of Bloomfield Avenue, just to the west of North Willow Street and to the east of the Glenridge Avenue, Bloomfield Avenue intersection. Janice, could you pull up the next slide?
Yep.
Yep.
I don't know why my computer is
Okay.
trying to close down all my other applications. But yeah, you have to go. I can't pull it up because I don't know what if it's too big for my computer to post right now, but yeah.
Paul, did you send, the first slide was what was is on Barton Ross's memo, but do we have anything else that has?
No, you don't have any of these.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, I can't even go to the first page now. I can't explain why my computer won't show all these items. But anyway, Paul, go ahead with your presentation. They have the plans.
Okay, but the,
I don't know what to tell you. If my computer can't open it,
okay.
there's not much I can do at this point.
Hmm.
Paul, may I ask him, has your design changed from what we received
Yes,
in the,
yes,
it has?
yeah, it's
Oh.
changed. And there are new renderings as part of this PowerPoint. There are cross sections and historical references.
Oh,
Um,
well, I think it's important that the commissioners see the new
Yes,
design.
Paul, do you have it,
So what do you think we should do?
a share file or a link that you could add to the chat that we could just click on and follow along?
If you have a smaller document, and maybe it's the size of the document that just is
yeah, let me
creating.
see if I could do that, Jason.
I'll try closing it and opening it again, see if that works.
How can I drag this onto the
No, you can't. I don't have
Okay.
the ability. I'm trying to do it
Okay.
right now. Do you see it, right? You see the first page, right?
Yes.
All right, so now I closed everything down, so let's see how it works. So
Great, that's good.
Good. Okay.
Okay, good. So this is a view taken by the owner of the front of 423 Bloomfield Avenue. You could see the two-story portion in the front of the building. You could see the four-story building to the left and the two-story structures directly to the right, to the east. Next slide. Can you pull it up?
okay.
Try to go quickly. Okay, and this is the view of the rear of the property. You know, as seen from the Midtown parking lot and also from Glenridge Avenue. Okay, next slide. We skipped one.
Oh, we did?
No, that's good. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
So
that's four. That's
Yep.
four.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this again is the view of the rear of the property taken from above Glenridge Avenue. You can see the flat roof of that one-story portion of the building. You can see the two-story portion in the front of the building. Next slide. This is so outlined in orange with a X through the middle and orange on the flat roof. That's the existing flat roof area, and the area that's outlined in orange is the area that's proposed to have the two-story addition. That would be the residence for Mr. and Mrs. Kennedy. Okay, next slide. We could skip this. This is the tax map on the left, the zoning map. Okay, thank you. Site plan, the building occupies 100% of the property. As you can see, property is only 27 feet wide. It's 119 feet deep. And it occupies all of the property except for a 2-foot strip at the rear or the easterly or northern side of the property towards Glenridge Avenue that has ground cover planting. And its property adjoins the paved parking lot to the neighboring property, and they have an easement that allows access across that paved parking to get to the rear of this building. Okay, next slide. As I said, the first floor is all Studio 042, which is the business that the applicant and the owner run, and it's a reprographic studio. And right now there will be access from the front. So the picture on the left has the front entry from Bloomfield Avenue. There's also an entry at the rear of the property from that access easement, which leads to the Midtown parking lot. Okay, next slide, please. The owner already received building permits to make Studio 042 space smaller. So the area shown in blue at the top right of that image, he has a building permit to create an 826 square foot rental space, a commercial tenant office space at the rear of the first floor that would have a terrace, an exterior terrace facing the north. And then Studio 042 space will become slightly smaller. And then part of the proposal is to create a new stair up to the second and third floor residence above. And that's right in the center of that floor plan shown in that the darker tan color with the green arrow pointing to the entrance to that stairway. Next slide. There's an existing apartment at the front of the building that's shown in blue. That's going to remain. And then there'll be a new addition at the rear of the building. And that will be separated from the front of the building by 15 feet 2 inches. And that will be a roof terrace that'll be used by the apartment residents at the front of the property. So you can see the apartment, and this is for the Kennedys. They'll have an open kitchen, dining, and living room on the first floor, also a terrace. So one of the things of this application is that the owners asked for a lot of cutouts on the rear elevation of the building to have a lot of terraces and spaces for planting along those terraces. So next slide, please. The floor above that, that's the master suite and a second bedroom and a den and an additional terrace. As the building goes up in height, it steps back from the facade along Glenridge Avenue. So just as on the floor below, there'll be another 13-foot by 13-foot terrace. And then additionally, there'll be a new interior stair that leads up to a rooftop deck. So next slide. The interior stair is going to lead up first into the storage room, also serving as a potting room. The Kennedys are interested in providing some planting along those terraces and on this roof deck. So this rooftop will be an open roof deck primarily, in addition to that storage room. And the goal is to use the storage room for rooftop like patio furniture that they could keep inside. Plus we're showing a countertop with a sink, so they could do potting of plants. We're also showing in the bottom left of that rooftop plan, we're showing an outdoor seating area, and that would be covered with a pergola. The owner requested that he has a good place to sit, be protected from the sun while looking towards the New York City skyline. We're showing a gable-shaped pergola roof to cover that southeast corner of the patio. And then the air conditioning units are going to be placed in the southwest corner. There's 3 units shown there. They'd be placed up against the high masonry wall and set behind a privacy screen. There's a base-shaped projection in the center of that roof deck, and that'll be glass surrounding an opening to the floor below. So the goal is to let light spill from the easterly side and the north side of this exterior and spill down into the floor below to provide additional light to the interior space below. Next slide. This is a cross section just showing the everything in that blue-green is existing, and then the yellow is proposed. So the blue-green, you see the apartment on the left, and then you see in the yellow the 2 stories of the new residence on the right. The building directly to the west is 425 Bloomfield Avenue, and the southerly wall of the new addition jogs to avoid the windows. So 425 Bloomfield Avenue has a lot of lot line windows directly on the property line. We're avoiding those windows, and we're actually jogging the new addition back away from those windows. So next slide. We look for historical references, and we'll see in the next slide that Barton Russ found a good one. This was from the Montclair Public Library. This is the American troops marching down Bloomfield Avenue on the way supposedly from Morristown to Newark to the waterfront to get onto ships on the way to Cuba for the Spanish-American War. But this is the only picture we found that had an image of the building. So the building was built in 1892. It's gone through a lot of iterations. It's gone through many changes. To me, the interesting thing is you could see that sign for L.S. Plowton Company, and that's the site of the Madison building, which wasn't even built yet. But you could see the turret on the left side of 423 Bloomfield Avenue. You see some arches. There's a second-story canopy or awning in the center of 423, and then there's a really large canopy over the entire sidewalk, both for 423 and the building directly next to it to the east. Next slide. So the top left was courtesy of Barton Ross. He found this photo, and that was from 1938. It doesn't match really what was there in 1898. But it's interesting. It still had the turret on the left, and then it became quasi Tudor style with the gable end Tudor design as the timbers, and the photograph on the bottom right shows what the building looks like now. And based on building records, the building was completely redone the last time in 1981 with the stow or drive it finish on the exterior. Stucco covers the entire front facade plus the rear facade. Front facade was straightened out. Window configurations were changed. Scott Kennedy, the owner, found a building card showing that in 1941, a barn was removed from the rear of the property. And then in 1954, the building was added to. So based on Barton's question on that photograph, is there something there to look for? So we played around with something that had some memory of what was there in 1938, even though that was probably not original, and it might be false historicization. Next slide. So the front and rear facades, as you see, they've been modified. Stucco covers everything. A large glass block panel was installed in the rear or the north elevation. So the owner's master plan is to remove all the stucco in the future, including on the facade. His preference is to get everything to a brick facade with cast stone elements, and that's what he's asked us for from the beginning of working with us. Try to get a building that's a nice downtown building with brick and a lot of cast stone details. Next slide. So these are two elevations. The elevation on the left is the front elevation seen from Bloomfield Avenue. The elevation on the right, the elevation seen from Glenridge Avenue. So you can see this brick with cast stone. The elevation facing Glenridge Avenue, which is one on the right, has a sloped wall that's clad with copper. It's not exactly a mansard roof, and within that sloped roof are two large dormer windows with curved copper roofs with very large windows, and that's part of the master bedroom for the owner. The ground floor at the rear would have a rusticated cast stone in place of the stucco. Floor above would be brick with cast stone with the simple arches. The terrace cut in on the left side. That's the business floor. And then the business floor is separated from the residential floor with that heavy cast stone cornice work. And then the building steps back where it becomes the 2 stories of residential use. We're still not sure about the feel of this, but the top, the roof deck has the gable-shaped pergola with the open slat. So it would be a metal pergola because the plan is to have a fire pit on the roof with seating around the fire pit. And we can't have wood slats or a wood pergola above the fire pit. So it'll be a metal pergola with metal slats to keep out the sun. the face of the that storage room or potting room at that top floor. We added the elements from that 1938 photo. I'm not sure that really goes. It was fun and something fun for people to look at. And the owner said he would enjoy being up on that roof and looking at those elements. The image on the left, which is what you would see from a distance from Bloomfield Avenue, actually you wouldn't see, and we'll show that in the rendering. But you could see the brick facade with the cast stone, and then the pergola above, and then the pergola posts and bracket actually mimic the 1938 image from that second floor of the building. The building is set back 65 feet from the front facade of Studio 042 space on Bloomfield Avenue. So that's set back quite a distance. Next slide, please. We originally, the owner had asked us to look at round top windows, as many as possible. I'm not a big fan of round top windows, but there are round top windows on the building directly to the west, the 425 Bloomfield Avenue. I don't think it looked right. We preferred to go with the image on the left with the more rectangular windows. And this is the view from that 15-foot deep terrace between the existing two-story part of the building in the front and the addition to the rear. Next slide, please. This is the east elevation. It shows the metal pergola above the roof. Shows as part of that roof deck, we actually calculated there'd be a terrific view of the New York City skyline above the new parking deck. So where it has number 2, that's a tempered glass guardrail wall along that eastern elevation. So Scott and his family or future residents can enjoy the roof and not have an impeded view of New York City. And then, as it says on number 3, the addition steps back as it goes up on that Glenridge Avenue side. Next slide, please. This is a 3D rendering of the proposed improvements as seen from the north or from Glenridge Avenue. So this is set into an actual photograph. Next slide. This is standing on the sidewalk on the south side of Bloomfield Avenue, just to see what would be visible from the south side. So you'd see the top of that storage room, roof, and a little bit of the pergola roof standing directly across the street. Next slide, please. This is walking down Bloomfield Avenue further. So you'd start to see this from the southeast. So it's partially visible when you're standing on the south side of the street when you walk down to the east. Since this rendering was done, we've reworked that pergola so that the columns are directly under the corners, so it doesn't cantilever like it's shown in this view. Next slide. And then this is a contextual view where we obtained the rendering of the new Midtown parking deck from the township. So we actually inserted the proposed view of the rear of 423 Bloomfield Avenue, along with the future parking deck and the existing buildings directly to the west or the east. You can see the Madison building, which is 5 stories along Glenridge Avenue to the east. And then you've got the Midtown parking deck. We try to pick up some of the elements from the surrounding buildings with the cast stone and the brick, but the little bit of sense of whimsy with the copper roof and the large copper covered dormer window and the pergola up on the roof. And that's really the last slide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So what we'll ask Mr. Ross Barton, are you still there? Yes, there you are. Your letter and your recommendations, I believe it would be the last paragraph. How do you feel that this alternate design has turned out compared to the one that we got and what we looked at on our big plans?
Right. So So obviously, this has been evolving over a few months, and it's obviously different than when I reviewed it. I think Paul's making really good tweaks, obviously moving the mass back on the site as much as possible, away from Bloomfield Avenue. Is the right thing to do. And now you're going to have this kind of new facade on Glenridge Avenue, which is obviously much larger. But as you can see in this rendering right here, you're going to have the new parking deck on the left, and the Madison building's already there. So I think it's kind of a neat, whimsical take on adding something new to the streetscape and kind of activating that side of Glenridge, which I think is terrific for the township. And Paul showed you the revised rendering, where you're not going to see as much of the building since it's set back 65 feet from Bloomfield. So I think it's good. You're not going to see it as much as we originally thought we would. I like the simpler, square rectangular type of design. I think it doesn't draw as much attention to itself on the Bloomfield side as opposed to the arched windows. And Paul's, as he showed you, he's making some good revisions on the top canopy element, which is obviously evolving as we speak. So I think Paul was looking for some feedback from the HPC on these design elements, and it's interesting. It's kind of a visual mixing of architectural styles, but I think they're on the right track. And like I said, they're just looking for some good feedback from the HPC.
Okay, thank you, Barton. So we'll just have, anybody have any questions for Mr. Sionis? Caroline, we'll start with you. You're muted.
Let me make sure everybody's unmuted.
Yes, I don't have questions, but I have comments.
Okay, so Mr. Reimnitz, questions?
No questions.
Mr. Greenbaum? No. Mr. Hyman,
No.
questions?
No.
Mr. Rooney?
I have no questions.
And I have no questions. So discussion, Caroline?
Yeah, Mr. Sionis, I mean, I'm an admirer of a lot of your work, but this is a project that it seems like a pastiche of architectural styles that really kind of draw undue attention to themselves, especially the mansard roof and those large dormer windows or projecting windows. I just think it needs to be simplified. It's just too much, and I don't think there are many mansard roofs in town. This is sort of a secondary. It is past a parking lot inset. It's not a primary facade, but it really does, I think, call undue attention to itself, and it's too much, and it should be simplified.
But I think there were two views of this. One which had the rounded windows weren't used, correct, Paul?
Well, that's facing into an inner courtyard, isn't that correct? It's not.
Correct.
So I think that's probably a direction to think about going for the visible part.
Oh, I thought it was an alternative. Okay, good point. Mr. Reimnitz, any discussion?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I agree with Caroline's basic comment. And I would just go back to our historic guidelines. This is really a new building, even though it's, I don't know, adding to an existing one, you wouldn't know it. So for all practical purposes, it's a new building. And if I read through the first couple paragraphs here, it says, the first paragraph says policy. New construction in Montclair's commercial areas should be compatible with adjacent buildings, primarily in scale, mass, and height, and secondarily in material composition, shape, placement, and rhythm and proportion of openings. New building design should not attempt to replicate historic examples. Someone's moving stuff around.
Sorry.
Historic examples and should stand as a product of its own time while being compatible with the surrounding historic built environment. And it goes on down, and the basic thing is, it says, our guidelines say that for new construction, it should reflect our time and where we are in history. And I just find too many references to historical elements here for me to be, to buy into this. It just seems a lot going on and not really the intent of what our own guidelines say.
Mr. Rooney?
I think, the size and the shape and the form of the whole building is good, and I find it really interesting. And I think the main problem that I have is the top of this back of the facade. We've got something very plain at the bottom. We've got a bit of an arch on the second floor. The third floor is where it steps back. And the fourth floor, I don't really know what's going on. It's mansard, it's got a curved top. I think that can be worked out better. But I think that the lower three floors, I think they're all fine. I think that they actually sort of melt in to what our downtown is. It's just the top floor.
Okay, and Mr. Hyman, are you still here?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Steve's comment. I think it's just the details on the top floor should just be scaled back a bit. But overall, looking at that last slide in comparison to those garage existing building.
Okay, thank you. And is Mr. Greenbaum still here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So, I don't mind the upper floor, although I think the perspective that it's drawn from right now leaves us wondering and questioning. I'm not quite sure. I would like to see more detail on that. I appreciate the ambition, architectural ambition, of trying to create these interesting kind of French kind of mansard type roofs in the rear. I just don't know if it's cohesive. And also, I'm the opposite, actually. I think the lower levels look very much more institutional. It's a very subjective thing. I guess from a massing point of view, no one seems to have a problem. I think it's just about the overall kind of ornamentation or kind of the aesthetic of the choices that were made. And I'd like to feel it to be more coherent. That's my concern. But otherwise, I applaud at least the architectural ambition. I would like to see the elevations, and renderings, where the perspective allowed me to see it more. I could see it more clearly and understand it more clearly.
Okay, thank you. Has everyone had a chance to voice their opinion for discussion? Okay, so what I think what I'm hearing is that most people are concerned with the top elevation and that perhaps that should be reworked. And I thought I saw in a picture that it was side by side, the one with the mansard rounded windows and the other one, the one next to it had just the straight windows. So I think that putting an additional mansard French element into this, it really is pushing too many of the boundary. Oh, see, this is the interior courtyard and not
Yeah.
okay. So you've got those same windows on the right. Isn't that similar to what's on the back now? If the windows were changed without that sort of Palladian structure on the top?
Pergola.
No, on the, yeah. So, so we have to make this goes to the planning board. The recommendation, we feel that it's the front facade, the massing up until the 3rd floor is fine. And then when it gets up to the top floor, it should be a little bit more in less fanciful.
I think it needs to be.
Vision
more
from
cohesive.
the design guidelines that.
Well, the design guidelines said it
should be included in the resolution to give some context for the recommendation that.
Right. So what it says here is that they must be compatible with the historic character of the district and a product of its own time.
Mm-hmm.
Or in other words, do not replicate historic designs. But does everyone feel that it maintains that until it gets to the top floor?
Well, I don't think it necessarily does that. I think that what we're looking for is it to be more cohesive throughout the building.
Mm-hmm.
This is Scott Kennedy speaking. Can I interject?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Pilar and I have been here for 30 years, and we tend to age in place. And so we live on Park Street, and our goal was to develop this building because right now it's an eyesore, and the other buildings on the avenue the other owners are spending considerable sums renovating their facades. And with the new parking deck going in here, that area is going to become very highly trafficked. And the back end of this building is going to become an eyesore. And so our goal was to invest the money and time and energy so that we could age in place comfortably. The reason I instructed Paul to go with the copper roof and the archtop windows was to add a sense of whimsy. And the reason I asked him to put a rooftop oasis in the middle of this urban society in downtown areas is because it's loud and it's hot and it's nasty down there, especially when the bars are closing. And if we're going to age in place, that's what we wanted to create for ourselves. I could have easily asked Paul to absolutely mimic the parking deck facade with its vertical walls and the buildings to the right. And I said, you know what, let's spend the money. Let's invest in the solid copper, the elements up there and make it look like something that people really want to live in. But my ultimate goal is to get it fruit fitting. So if you'd like us to strip off that copper roof and just put on something plain Jane that matches the buildings to the right and left, I'm all for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, can I say something? I understand what he's talking about a lot. I just think that this is a little bit too much of a weird whimsy. I think you could use all of those elements and get them to work together.
And,
I agree with that.
and I would just like to mention that I think, Mr. Kennedy, you have a very talented architect who's very familiar with the fabric of Montclair. And I think he's going to be able to come up with something that's what you're looking for and something that will fit in a little bit more with the streetscape. So I'm quite sure that he can take our comments and come up with something.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be plain Jane like the building to the right. I think it's a challenge to Paul to bring it into this century and do something that, stands out in terms of our time. And this looks a little Disney to me, and I understand you know, I understand the intent and it's playful and fun, but I think there's too much going on.
Yes, and I think if you look at the bottom two floors from the back elevation, the bottom 2.5 stories, I think really do deviate from the horizontal plane structures on both sides and the new one that will be on the left. So in my opinion, I think it just needs to be more cohesive with what's going on the bottom 2 floors. And I think that's what is contained in Barton Ross's memo. But I think we can also pull out the wording that John quoted before from our design guidelines, which is on page 115, basic approach for new commercial construction. So, and where it would be common misconception should look old and should imitate it. So it's important we recognize that it is a building that does not look like the other buildings on either side, and yet the bottom 2.5 stories do have a connection with them, whereas the top story just doesn't. So can we put that into our recommendation?
I think what we could say is, whoa. I think what we could say is that we have no problem with the massing or the form per se.
Yes.
It's more the articulation of the different elements. And we'd like to see something more cohesive.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
right.
good.
Absolutely.
Good
And
work.
you know what? I think Paul, one more crack at it, probably really great job and make something that Laura would be very proud of.
Yeah, and I think I'm really appreciative of his sensitivity to the building to the west, that you didn't obscure all of their light, by blocking their entire wall. I think that was very considerate. So I think what you've done is really great to look at all those elements but I think it's a little bit not cohesive enough at this rendering in the back now. And then in the future, the front, you said that will the stucco will come off and that will gain a brick facade
That's the intent,
down the road.
right, down the road.
Okay.
Hey, Paul, you might get some good inspiration from looking at if you have a chance to look at some of the development that's taken place in Georgetown.
Okay.
Just some of the older homes and how people adaptively, I don't need to tell you, but I'm just thinking, when I was in Georgetown recently, I saw a lot of these kind of adaptations, and they were done very tastefully in some cases. So you might get some inspiration.
Yeah, actually, some of this is from Georgetown, some of the inspiration. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, see you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So that is our last,
So do we turn it into some sort of
it becomes a recommendation that we just,
recommendation? Okay.
right, and then it goes to the planning board, and Mr. Rooney will be there at the next meeting. Janice, when does this go? Next week?
Monday night.
Monday
Yes.
night.
Yeah, Monday night. So Mr. Rooney will be there so he can speak it. And thank you, Barton, for writing the memo for us. Okay, good night. So next on our agenda, certificates and resolutions, we have none. Then we have our adjournment. Will somebody make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
A second.
Aye.
All right, all in favor, aye. All
Aye.
right, all right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Janice.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a
And our
good
next
evening,
meeting is the 4th week of August. I believe it's the 27th. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but it's very late. So we'll see you then.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.